Chapter 437, What Kind of Life? 2nd of Saturday's, Roar. The dragon roared, besides there was more than a single head and they were all roaring. That dragon had 7 heads which looked down at the crowd, causing their souls to tremble in fright. Dual spirit, the crowd was astonished. Lin Feng had hidden something else. He had his purple spirit and a dragon spirit, and when considering that dragon's chi, it seemed much more terrifying than Lin Feng's purple spirit. Of course, some people had already recognized the spirit, and all of those who could were particularly dumbstruck. That was the heavenly dragon spirit. It was the spirit of the Yu clan. Lin Feng surprisingly had the spirit of the Yu clan. In other words, the blood of the Yu clan was flowing through his veins. When people discovered that, they were gobsmacked. Many thoughts were circulating at full speed through their brains. Was Lin Feng a member of the Yu clan? No, it can't be. Suddenly, a few people looked as if they had understood something incredible. It couldn't be. Lin Feng was born in Yangzhou City. He couldn't be a member of the Yu clan. Besides, if he was a member of the Yu clan, with such incredible natural talent, would Yu Qingshan have allowed Lin Feng to be bullied in such a way? He would have already got involved. Wait, a great deal of people were stuck trying to understand the situation. Their hearts started pounding as they all thought of an answer. If the blood of the Yu clan flowed in somebody's veins, it didn't necessarily mean that the person was a member of the Yu clan or that they were named Yu. There was another possibility, the possibility that a member of the Yu clan had a child outside of the clan which inherited the blood spirit. When the crowd thought about that possibility, they also looked to the mysterious woman in the sky. 18 years ago, there was a woman from the Yu clan who was so gifted that she shocked the entire country. However, because she fell for someone against the clan's wishes, she had cut off ties with the Yu clan and was never heard from again. That mysterious woman must be the same woman who disappeared 18 years ago, Yu Menghe. She had disappeared after she went against her family because of the man she loved. Lin Feng was stood in the sky with that very woman. He was 18 years old with the blood of the Yu clan running through his veins. The last time, at the Mount Sword, Yu Qingshan also provided a small assistance to Lin Feng. Thoughts were racing at full speed, many people were dumbstruck and others felt their hearts pounding. The truth was already crystal clear to those influential powers. The one who was the most outstanding female cultivator in the country, who disappeared 18 years ago, was standing in the air in front of them. She was the mysterious woman. Others began to gradually understand the situation. Yu Menghe thought many different factions while looking towards the Yu clan. They all glanced at Yu Qingshan, the head of the Yu clan, for a second to confirm their suspicions. From his reaction, it was definitely Yu Menghe. Lin Feng must be her son. Who was the person who said that Lin Feng had no influence and no one supporting him? Who would dare to anger someone who was one of the most amazing cultivators of the country from 18 years previous? Who knew how strong she had become within the past 18 years? The crowd was both terribly excited and puzzled at the same time. They looked at Lin Feng, confused as to what type of life he had lived so far. After all, Lin Feng was only 18 years old and he probably didn't know about the events of the past. He didn't know the full story regarding him and his parents. How could he make the connection? Lin Feng had no idea of what other people were thinking. Concerning Chu Zhanpeng, he had already seen the blood spirit of the Yu clan, the heavenly dragon spirit. He had never thought that Lin Feng would have this spirit since he was born in Yangzhou City. Besides, many of the members of the Yu clan were also shocked and they saw Lin Feng's spirit. The blood spirit of their clan. And on top of that it had 7 heads. Sigh, Yu Qingshan sighed deeply. He slightly closed his eyes and didn't open them for a long time. A painful smile could be seen on his face. Why were the heavens so cruel towards him? His daughter, Yu Menghe, was the most gifted cultivator that the Yu clan had been blessed with in generations, but she cut off all ties with the clan. Now, his grandson grew up without knowing that he had the blood of the Yu clan was flowing within his veins. His dragon spirit even had a total of 7 heads, only Yu Tianming could match his incredible power. What's that? At that moment, someone looked at the different heads of the dragon. There was a bestial white light shining from one of the heads. It looked deathly pale and was releasing a bestial qi. It looked gloomy. That is a shaman spirit. The spirit that belonged to the Wanshou sect. It was Teng Wuyao's spirit. How could Lin Feng also have a shaman spirit? Rumor said that the heavenly dragon spirit could consume ferocious beasts and spirits as their own strength. When had Lin Feng's spirit come into contact with a cultivator who possessed a shaman spirit? The crowd looked at the Wanshou sect and more precisely at Teng Wuyao. They only saw that Teng Wuyao looked particularly glum at that moment. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng with enormous killing intent being released. Lin Feng had a heavenly dragon spirit, no wonder Wu Zhen had disappeared without a word. Lin Feng killed him and consumed his spirit. When Teng Wuyao thought about how his son had been killed by Lin Feng, his face grew even more ferocious. His eyes wanted to kill Lin Feng using only his stare. However, at that moment, Lin Feng wasn't paying attention to people's expressions of surprise or to Teng Wuyao's murderous intentions. He was focusing all of his attention on Chu Zhanpeng. The other day, you challenged me to a one-on-one fight and then today you attacked me by surprise with another person, but I will still honor your request for a fight. I know that you harbor killing intent. I will give you the opportunity you need. I want to see what Chu Zhanpeng, the high official, can do apart from attacking people by surprise or being shameless and arrogant. I want to see if your arrogance and pride is justified. Lin Feng was fixedly staring at Chu Zhanpeng and releasing a deadly energy which moved through the atmosphere towards Chu Zhanpeng's. Lin Feng's purple dragon spirit and his heavenly dragon spirit circled the sky. Their gigantic evil-looking eyes were staring directly at Chu Zhanpeng like he was food. Being observed by 2 large monsters whose eyes looked particularly ruthless made Chu Zhanpeng feel even less comfortable. Spirit fusion! Shouted Lin Feng in a deep voice. In a flash, his 2 spirits slowly started to fuse together. The gigantic purple dragon was combining into the heavenly dragon spirit. Roar! A loud roar reverberated through the atmosphere. After fusing together, Lin Feng's spirits were releasing a terrifyingly powerful qi. His 2 spirits had fused. Die! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. In his left hand, he had the black lotus. In his right hand, he still had his black sword. Coupled with his spirit fusion, Lin Feng looked like an unstoppable monster. He couldn't lose. Chu Zhanpeng is doomed. Thought most of the people watching. They didn't even dare to believe otherwise. Chu Zhanpeng was ranked 6th amongst the high officials and was going to lose to Lin Feng. But Lin Feng was so incredible and awe-inspiring that they couldn't help but admire him. Let's fight! Shouted Lin Feng. His deadly energy crashed through the air emitting a rumbling sound. His body then flew through the air in Chu Zhanpeng's direction. In the sky, there was only deadly energy as far as the eye could see. Chu Zhanpeng's wings were flapping in the air but he looked dumbstruck. Lin Feng had a black lotus in his left hand and a terrifying black sword in his right. What a monster! Ee. A sharp sound emerged from the legendary rock's mouth. A few threads of pure qi turned into blue and green lights which were as sharp as claws, that shot towards Lin Feng. Pierce! Said Lin Feng while raising his deadly sword. It seemed like it could annihilate anything in its path. In the blink of an eye, Chu Zhanpeng's attack was shredded into nothing. Besides, the deadly energy in the atmosphere didn't stop moving, it still crashed through the atmosphere in Chu Zhanpeng's direction. Chu Zhanpeng spread his wings and his silhouette flickered. He flapped his wings with such power that it created a small hurricane in the air. At the same time, his wings continued flapping as he turned away in an attempt to escape. Surprisingly, he didn't have the courage to fight against Lin Feng any longer after his attack was so easily destroyed. Die! Shouted Lin Feng while attacking with his sword while rushing forward like the wind. At the same time, Lin Feng's fused spirits roared and charged forwards. Many purple lights were twinkling on the body of the heavenly dragon. All of its movements were monstrously fast, it was tyrannical. Those purple lights shot out like snakes, but they moved much faster and were much more brutal than any ordinary snake. Roar! The dragon roared, its 7 heads started to shake. It seemed like something was propelling Lin Feng through the air. He was moving extremely fast and looked like his power was being increased by several folds. Whoosh! The purple snakes had caught up with Chu Zhanpeng and wrapped around his body, binding him. Lacerate! Shouted Chu Zhanpeng furiously. His wings were sharper than most swords, so the majority of the purple snakes were lacerated, but the purple light was growing more and more, making it more painful as he cut the snakes. The dragon started to breathe a purple light from its mouth, which strengthened the purple spirit further. The snake then charged at Chu Zhanpeng's body without restraint and bound every inch of his body in place. Chapter 438, The Death of a High Official. PR, Fluffy First of Sunday, what a terrifying spirit. Chu Zhanpeng possessed a legendary rock spirit and his strength was in his speed, but Lin Feng's purple spirit, after the fusion, had breathed out an incredible number of purple snakes which moved as fast as lightning. They were even faster than Lin Feng, who could move with the wind. Chu Zhanpeng was restrained by the purple snakes in an instant. He was completely smothered by them. A terrifying and sharp sound emerged in the atmosphere as the purple snakes surrounding Chu Zhanpeng's body started breaking apart. In the middle of those purple snakes, Chu Zhanpeng unleashed a terrifying power. In a flash, the myriad of purple snakes had vanished. However, at the same time, Lin Feng had already arrived, and his shocking, deadly energy replaced the purple snakes that surrounded Chu Zhanpeng. Chu Zhanpeng had just destroyed the purple snakes when he noticed the deadly energy surrounding him. It was coming so fast that Chu Zhanpeng didn't even have time to dodge, he could only try to block it. Arg! Chu Zhanpeng shouted furiously, as a pure brutal chi rose into the air and the incomparably sharp wings of the legendary rock started swiping towards the deadly energy. Boom! Psh! Lin Feng's deadly sword pierced through Chu Zhanpeng's legendary rock spirit and a fountain of blood sprayed into the air. Chu Zhanpeng unleashed a scream of agony as he used pure qi to propel himself backwards. He needed to escape at all costs. No! Zhanpeng! Shouted Chu Qing at that moment. He couldn't help but throw himself towards Lin Feng like a bolt of lightning crossing the skies. But his speed crossing this large distance was a fraction slower than Lin Feng's sword. Lin Feng's entire body released a powerful, deadly energy as his sword filled with killing intent. Lin Feng took another step forwards, his dragon roared as the terrifying qi crashed into the dragon's body. Lin Feng wasn't even fazed as he continued forward with his sword. Psh! Lin Feng sliced down with his sword. Another spray of blood filled the air, and the same horrible shriek could be heard again. Chu Zhanpeng's body was covered with blood from head to toe. His face was scarlet red and painted with blood. He no longer had the power left to fly anymore, and his body started to plummet towards the ground. At the moment when Lin Feng was attacking Chu Zhanpeng's plummeting body, Chu Qing had joined the battle. He had arrived beneath Chu Zhanpeng and unleashed his pure qi in Lin Feng's direction. Die! Shouted Chu Qing furiously as he punched through the air. His fist unleashed a sharp qi towards Lin Feng. Chu Qing's face was filled with murder when he saw the qi about to reach Lin Feng. Wind! As if Lin Feng hadn't seen Chu Qing's attack, his silhouette flickered, and just like the wind he drifted along the sky. His terrifying qi rolled through the atmosphere. Chu Qing flew into the sky and in a flash, he was at the same altitude as Lin Feng. It wouldn't be easy for either side to miss an attack from this distance. Die! Shouted Lin Feng in a deep voice. Under the moonlight, many images of Lin Feng appeared. Lin Feng passed by Chu Qing as if he was never there. They looked like strangers passing each other on the street. Even though Chu Qing was standing in his path, Lin Feng continued past him and moved towards Chu Zhanpeng. At the same time he released a black object from his hands which rushed towards Chu Qing. Chu Qing suddenly lowered his head and saw a huge wound had appeared in his chest. There was a black lotus that had landed on his chest, as the flames penetrated into his body. His chest felt like it was on fire, the lotus had burned a hole through his entire chest. Ah! A horrible and blood-curdling shriek filled the air. Immediately after, the crowd saw Chu Qing's body was burnt black. Fire! That black lotus had unleashed condensed grim fire which burnt Chu Qing into ashes. How scary! The crowd was shocked, and their hearts were pounding restlessly. The patriarch of the Haoyu sect, Chu Qing, could be burnt alive by Lin Feng's black lotus with such little effort. All the members of the Haoyu sect stood up and fixedly stared at the black flames. In a flash, the last of Chu Qing's body was turned to ashes and disappeared in the wind. He had been burnt alive. He was dead. The patriarch of the Haoyu sect, Chu Qing, was no more. Besides, it wasn't over. Lin Feng, after attacking Chu Qing with his black lotus, continued to release his deadly energy which crashed downwards towards Chu Zhanpeng. His deadly black sword also continued on its path and descended from the sky. The black light from the deadly energy was illuminated by the pale moonlight. It was strangely beautiful. Lin Feng's deadly sword was about to reach Chu Zhanpeng, who was currently cowering in fear. Suddenly, Chu Zhanpeng looked terrified. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. His eyes were filled with resentment, grief and many other feelings. However, nothing could be changed. Chu Zhanpeng was one of the 8 high officials and a genius cultivator. He would never have thought that a little insect who was only at the Qi layer would one day become strong enough to kill him. He had destroyed the Yunhai sect and completely disregarded all of its members, but Lin Feng continued to grow despite adversity. Back then, Lin Feng was only a cultivator at the Qi layer. He was nothing to Chu Zhanpeng, but at that moment, he had become an unbelievable genius who could kill one of the 8 high officials. Splash! Chu Zhanpeng's body was blasted into the water of the lake with a loud splash. Water splashed everywhere as his blood dyed the water with a tinge of red. Then, thick red blood spread across the surface of the lake. At that moment, Chu Zhanpeng and his father Chu Qing were reunited. Every single member of the Haoyu sect was shaking. They were dead. The patriarch of the Haoyu sect had just died, and now his son was killed. This was the end for the Haoyu sect. Besides, nobody was left to avenge them. Who would dare to fight against Lin Feng? Chu Qing was killed by him in an instant. The crowd looked at the proud young man and felt like the entire competition had been a dream. That outstanding young man had astonished them time after time again, causing them to be left in disbelief. He was offering the most outstanding and dazzling of shows. From that day, Lin Feng would be a ranked high official, immediately entering at the 6th position. Ling Tian was dead, Shi Qiong was dead, Chu Qing was dead, Chu Zhanpeng the 6th high official just died, and they were all killed by Lin Feng. Nothing could stop Lin Feng from becoming the 6th high official of Xueyu at that moment. On the side of the holy courtyard of Xueyu, Duan Tian Lang was left mouth agape. He was fixedly staring at Lin Feng with murderous intentions. They were all dead and no one had managed to kill Lin Feng. Besides, he was her son. Luo Shui was also pulling a long face. Initially, he still wanted to avenge his fellow disciples Bing Yuan's death. However, at that moment, he had already given up on the idea. Killing Lin Feng? He would just get himself killed instead. At Luo Shui's side, there was Lin Qian. She looked absolutely desperate and pitiful at that moment. Chu Zhanpeng, her only hope, was dead. Besides, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Chu Zhanpeng's death was directly caused by her. If she hadn't taken him to get revenge on Lin Feng, Chu Zhanpeng would never have encountered Lin Feng, and they wouldn't have been led down this path. Chu Zhanpeng would never have a reason to make attempts on Lin Feng's life if it wasn't for Lin Qian pushing him. The events which caused his death were all her fault. Because of her, the Lin clan had collapsed into ruin and a never-before-seen genius was expelled from the clan. Because of her, the Hallyu sect had lost its patriarch and junior patriarch. The entire sect would be removed from history. The patriarch of the Hallyu sect had died after joining a fight between juniors. Chu Zhanpeng had died after attacking Lin Feng by surprise. The members of the Hallyu sect felt like there was no longer any prestige remaining. Many of the members would leave and the other sects would tear apart the remains of the Hallyu sect. But Lin Feng wasn't thinking about what would happen to the sect now. He was looking at the colorful ribbons and the old man being restrained. At that moment, the old man looked deathly pale. There wasn't a single trace of color on his face. The regret was written all over his face, but he couldn't change his actions even if he wanted to. What he had done was catastrophic. He had provoked her. His life was at their mercy and nobody would come to his rescue. Nobody would even think about trying to save him. The old man understood exactly what identity this woman held. Nobody could save him from death. The old man had a great deal of power and influence on his side, but today he was going to die. The old man hated himself for his own stupidity. He hadn't even considered the possibility of Lin Feng having a powerful support behind him. He foolishly believed that Lin Feng was only still alive because he had luck on his side. When Lin Feng saw the old man, his facial expression became cold, and he released more deadly energy which fiercely cut through the air. You thought that you could bully me because I have no backer. That's why you abused your power to help Shi Qiong fight against me. You tried to make it so that I, Lin Feng, had no choice but to die. Now, your life is in my hands. Is there anything you have to say for yourself? Asked Lin Feng coldly. If the old man hadn't directly interfered and prevented him from finding Meng Qing wouldn't have been injured. Chapter 439, The Pieces Come Together. Last chapter for Sunday. When the old man heard Lin Feng, he remained silent. What could he say in this situation? It was exactly as Lin Feng described it, and now the old man's life was in Lin Feng's hands. Is there any possibility of a negotiation? Asked the old man while looking at Lin Feng. No, there isn't. Replied Lin Feng without any hesitation while shaking his head. When you were in the position of power, you humiliated me and played with me as if I was nothing. You wanted to take my life and humiliate Meng Qing. Now that I am the one with power, do you really think that I will be merciful and spare your life? When the crowd heard Lin Feng, they sighed. Indeed, everybody had seen how the old man had treated Lin Feng. In the illusion, he had prevented Lin Feng from meeting Meng Qing. Lin Feng wasn't able to enter the room where Meng Qing and Shi Qiong were fighting. Besides, after the illusion stopped, Lin Feng and Shi Qiong started fighting. When Shi Qiong seemed to have the advantage, the old man hadn't intervened. When Chu Zhanpeng joined the battle and attacked Lin Feng by surprise, the old man didn't act. The old man only took action when he saw that Shi Qiong was about to die. He was playing with Lin Feng the entire time, because he was supporting Shi Qiong. The situation had now drastically changed, and at that moment, Lin Feng had the power. The old man's life was in his hands, so would he let the old man live? Impossible. The old man sighed. He felt regret from the bottom of his heart, but there was no cure for regret. I hate my own foolish actions. I thought about the gains from interfering with a rising genius. Unfortunately, I was just fooling myself. Sighed the old man. He then slowly closed his eyes and said, "Let me die in peace." "All right, I will give you that." Lin Feng slightly nodded and raised his hand. A black flame started to burn. It released threads of deadly energy into the air. Lin Feng's hand shook and the grim fire landed by the old man's heart. In a flash, the deadly energy spread across the defenseless old man's chest. The old man's facial muscles twitched and immediately after, his head fell limply towards his chest as he stopped moving. However, the grim fire continued burning his body into nothingness. A cultivator of the 5th Xian Qi layer was dead. And on top of that, he was sent from the imperial city. The crowd sighed. Just how many strong cultivators had died today? Ling Tian, Shi Qiong, Chu Zhanpeng, Chu Qing, and the old man, these were only the few that were killed by Lin Feng. The fire kept burning across the old man's body as the colorful ribbons returned to their owners. At that moment, a ring which was diffusing pallid lights appeared in the air in front of Lin Feng, which surprised him. Lin Feng stretched his arm out and grabbed the ring. The old man had broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer and was from the imperial city. There were probably lots of treasures and wealth that had accumulated over a long time in that ring. After that, Lin Feng turned around and looked at the mysterious woman. He looked perplexed. He still didn't understand why she was helping him, and why did he have the same feeling of closeness whenever he looked at her. "Do we know each other?" asked Lin Feng again while looking at the mysterious woman. Lin Feng's intuition was telling him that there was a connection between them. When the mysterious woman heard Lin Feng, she started to tremble. She could walk through the sky, look down upon the earth, she could raise her hand and kill thousands, but she was unable to remain calm in front of Lin Feng. Lin Feng's indifferent and emotionless voice when speaking with her made her bite down on her lips. She wanted to shout the truth from the top of her lungs, but she didn't know what to say. Could she tell Lin Feng that she was his mother even though she hadn't seen him throughout the entire 18 years of his life? Lin Feng was waiting for her answer, but she remained silent. The people who understood their story were sighing, the woman was also sighing. Everything was about to change. "She's Lin Hai's wife and you ask her if you know each other?" A shout suddenly interrupted. A few people sighed. Nothing could change what happened in the past, that was the truth of the matter. That sentence made Lin Feng's heart start to race. Lin Hai's wife. A sharp and cruel light filled Lin Feng's eyes. The one who had just spoken was Yu Qingshan, the head of the Yu clan. What the hell is going on? Lin Feng's thoughts and feeling were completely chaotic. A moment ago, he had guessed that this woman was the owner of the lovesick forest, and last time, Duan Xianyi had told him that the person was a beautiful woman from the Yu clan. She was the most dazzling female cultivator of Shuiyu, but she eventually cut ties with the Yu clan. In other words, it was also possible that she was related to Yu Qingshan. When Yu Menghe saw Lin Feng's expression, she nodded slowly in agreement. She put her hand on her bamboo hat and threw it away. The bamboo hat flew away on the wind and the mysterious woman's face appeared. She looked pure, delicate and soft. She had arched eyebrows and an oval face, her beautiful eyes were filled with tears and her face had turned red. She still looked tender and soft, but there was something more, she looked sad. "Menghe, you haven't changed at all." Yu Qingshan's silhouette flickered and he rose into the air. While looking at that woman's face, he couldn't help but sigh. Yu Menghe looked at Yu Qingshan, she was extremely puzzled. If Yu Qingshan had stood by her and agreed for her to be with Lin Hai, none of this would have happened. "You have changed, your hair is now white," said Yu Menghe in a low voice. It was impossible to see her thoughts from her facial expression. "Indeed, I am old now. I might die soon, but even now, you still refuse to call me father," said Yu Qingshan, who had mixed feelings. He loved his daughter and he was able to see her again, but they were no better than strangers. Her father. Many people didn't know that Yu Menghe was his daughter. When they heard that, their hearts felt uneasy. Yu Qingshan was saying that Yu Menghe refused to call him father, so she must be his daughter. Yu Menghe, 18 years ago, used to be the most outstanding female cultivator in the country. Many people found themselves excited when they recalled the story about the events 18 years ago. So that's it, the incredible female genius who had amazed Shuiyu 18 years ago was his daughter. Besides, it seemed like Lin Feng was Yu Menghe's son. So wasn't he also Yu Qingshan's grandson? He had the heavenly dragon spirit, the spirit of the Yu clan. Everything was becoming clearer. Lin Feng was also starting to understand everything. Lin Feng had the blood spirit of the Yu clan and was the head of the Yu clan's grandson. "Call you father?" Yu Menghe frowned and then said coldly, "Do you think that you have acted as a father?" Yu Menghe's voice was filled with resentment. She was blaming Yu Qingshan for everything that happened, which left him speechless. Everything I've done, if it wasn't for you then it was for the Yu clan, replied Yu Qingshan. He looked troubled after hearing Yu Menghe's words, but he replied with a clear conscience. So you still think that what you did was right for the Yu clan? And right by me? Yu Menghe was looking at him like he was pathetic. She smiled coldly and said, so what do you want? Why have you come over to me? When Yu Qingshan heard her words, he was surprised. He always thought that he had made the correct choice, but Yu Menghe, from beginning to the end, never changed her view. They were both alike, neither would admit if they had been wrong. When there was a large disagreement between a father and his daughter, it was difficult to solve it. Lin Feng was standing between them, unable to calm down. His heart was drumming in his ears and his thoughts were beyond chaotic. He was trying to remember Duan Xianye's story about what happened 18 years ago with the 4 geniuses, but he never paid it much heed. Amongst those 4 geniuses, 3 of them had fallen in love with the 4th, the most outstanding female cultivator in the country. After that, Zhuge Wuqing gave up his pursuit and the beautiful woman had chosen the man who had no family or influence. In the end, the one from the imperial clan was angry at Yu Menghe and her lover, so he sealed her lover who wasn't famous and forced him to leave the imperial city. The imperial clan, the sealed doors. Lin Feng's heart was racing. He suddenly remembered that his father had a black mark on his body. It was a sealed door. The outstanding yet unknown cultivator who had amazed the country 18 years previously. The one left with a sealed door on his body, was his father, Lin Hai. All the pieces were starting to come together. Lin Feng would have never thought that the story that he had heard by chance, was hiding such a big secret. It was the story of his parents. Chapter 440, Satisfied. Monday's chapter. When Lin Feng looked at that beautiful woman, he had the impression that he must be dreaming. That beautiful woman was his mother. She was once the most beautiful woman of Shuiyu and she definitely deserved that title. 18 years later and she still looked so beautiful, graceful and elegant. What must she have looked like 18 years ago? She was probably even more beautiful than one could imagine. Yu Qingshan sighed. He was looking at Yu Menghe while remaining silent. He then looked at Lin Feng. He wanted to say something, but didn't know what to say. In the end, his silhouette flickered and he moved back down and returned to the Yu clan. Yu Menghe stopped looking towards Yu Qingshan. She then looked at Lin Feng and nibbled on her lips. She said in a low voice, "Little Feng, you've been suffering for 18 years." Lin Feng opened his mouth and then closed it as nothing was coming out. Even though he had arrived in this world a few years ago, his soul had already fused with that of the real Lin Feng. He was part of the old Lin Feng and the old Lin Feng was part of him. He was unable to forget the memories of his previous self, therefore, seeing that woman, who gave the impression of a strong yet elegant woman, who seemed to care so much about him, was very strange to him. It seemed like that slim and graceful woman was his mother. Lin Feng smiled wryly for a while and took a deep breath. The Lin Feng who was originally from this world had already died. It was useless to continue thinking about it. He was himself and he had to live for the present. There may have been 2 in the past, but now there was only one Lin Feng. He had to live his life the way he wanted to make those close to him happy. Above the water of the lake, which had tints of red from the blood, there was a proud genius, Lin Feng. Mother. A magnificent and radiant smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. After all the chaos in his heart, he felt like he had been reborn. This could be a new start. He suddenly felt like he had become more mature. He understood many things about himself and his past self. Lin Feng was also more detailed in his way of thinking. Being called mother caused Yu Menghe to be speechless. She was standing in the moonlight which illuminated her beauty, as well as her radiant eyes. Tears had begun to form on the corners of her eyes. She had been waiting to hear these words for 18 years. During those 18 years, she wanted to hear Lin Feng call her mother, with all her being, and finally, she had the chance to hear the words she had always dreamed of. When she heard Lin Feng call her mother, all her sadness washed away and she was overcome with happiness. She had done everything during these past years for the sake of Lin Feng, and now she felt like all the suffering was worth it. Yu Menghe moved over to Lin Feng and put her 2 hands on his face. She couldn't help but gently caress her son's face. Her son wasn't any weaker than her when she was at his age. Lin Feng was a genius when it came to swords. She was proud of him. She was deeply gratified in her heart. I just wanted to scream at all those fools, how in the world could my son be a piece of trash? Yu Menghe laughed and gently caressed her son's head with a magnificent smile on her face. It seemed like she had been keeping tabs on Lin Feng for the last 18 years and knew that people would call her son a piece of trash, but by relying on his own efforts, Lin Feng had risen to the top. If Lin Feng hadn't been extremely strong and didn't have extremely high natural abilities, she might not have been able to contact her son. If he hadn't been strong, he wouldn't be a free man. If Lin Feng had been a worthless cultivator, she would have rather let him live an ordinary life and not get involved with the world of cultivation. Even if he wasn't outstanding, he could at least have a happy and tranquil life. That had always been Lin Hai's thought. It was agreed between Lin Hai and Yu Menghe. Therefore, Lin Hai never tried to force Lin Feng to cultivate. He wanted him to have the chance at life as an ordinary person, but after that Lin Feng displayed his talent, Lin Hai knew his son wasn't ordinary. He decided to let Lin Feng leave home and create his own path. The result of his actions was a complete success. Lin Feng was proof. Lin Feng had come to the imperial city and relied on his own talents to accomplish a great deal of meritorious acts, which made him the stuff of legends. At that moment, Yu Menghe and Lin Hai had discovered that Lin Feng had started to walk a very straightforward path. But no matter what path Lin Feng chose, his parents would silently and secretly guide him until they could meet again. Until that moment, his mother was always secretly monitoring him. Many people had thought that her son had no influence and no powerful backers. They thought that they could bully him, harass him and try to kill him, without worrying about an outside force. How could Yu Menghe let those people get away with that? She had shown herself and she was announcing to everybody that Lin Feng was her son. She wouldn't tolerate anyone trying to bully or kill her son. Who would dare say that Lin Feng was trash with her around? When thinking about those things, Yu Menghe glanced at the crowd with a cold glare and spoke. A moment ago, so many people were saying that my son needed to die and that they wanted to kill him. Come out and show yourselves. I dare you to say it again. Yu Menghe's words stupefied the crowd. A moment before, the Yu clan, the Dugu clan, the Wanshou sect, the Haoyu sect, the Luoxia sect, the Ice and Snow Mountain Village etc. had all said that they wanted Lin Feng dead, but at that moment, when Yu Menghe was glaring at them in such an ice-cold way, they could only shake and shiver without saying a word. Nobody dared to say anything because nobody knew how terrifyingly strong she had become after 18 years of seclusion. Perhaps Yu Menghe had already become stronger than the head of the Yu clan, Yu Qingshan. On the path of cultivation, seniors passed their innate talents on to the next generation and the next generation was expected to surpass them with time. Everybody was silent. Yu Menghe smiled coldly and said, "You're a bunch of worthless cowards, you don't even speak when I am here. If anyone attempts to harm my son, Yu Menghe will annihilate them." When she finished talking, Yu Menghe suddenly released a monstrous deadly energy which rolled across the sky and suppressed the entire crowd. Many people couldn't breathe under such a heavy pressure. What a terrifying pressure! Many people looked glum, especially those who had a grudge against Lin Feng. Yu Menghe was too strong, that pressure alone was choking them and it was only a warning, it was a guarantee that she, Yu Menghe, had the power to enforce her words. Besides, the crowd knew that if they offended Yu Menghe, they would also offend someone else, Zhuge Wuqing. If anything happened to Yu Menghe, the Yu clan would definitely intervene. Humph. Yu Menghe groaned coldly and said, This so-called genius competition is pointless, a great majority of you are nothing but corrupt and despicable people, who have no principles. I will be watching you in the future. In a short while, the people from the empire will arrive. At that time, I am convinced that they will pick out the most outstanding geniuses themselves. They have eyes. They will know with a glance what kind of trash you people are. When she finished talking, she looked at Lin Feng and said, "Little Feng, this competition is over, let's go." "All right," nodded Lin Feng. Yu Menghe and Lin Feng's silhouettes flickered and they instantly arrived next to Meng Qing. Yu Menghe glanced at Meng Qing and smiled. The crowd was dazzled by the two beauties. Yu Menghe was named the most beautiful woman in Shuiyu 18 years ago, and she was still extremely beautiful. Then there was Lin Feng's lover, Meng Qing. She looked holy and pure, like a celestial being. Yu Menghe and Meng Qing standing next to each other was too beautiful, the rest of the world lost its beauty in their presence. But those two women weren't in the same generation, so there was no use comparing between the mature one and the young beauty. Meng Qing was Lin Feng's woman and was therefore Yu Menghe's daughter-in-law. How could there be competition between them? When Lin Feng saw Yu Menghe and Meng Qing look at each other, he still felt extremely nervous. In his previous world, this would mean that the mother-in-law was sizing up the daughter-in-law. Lin Feng wasn't the only one who was nervous. Something very rare happened at that moment. Meng Qing had a nervous expression on her face. When she saw that Yu Menghe was sizing her up, she lowered her head shyly. "Yu Menghe, Meng Qing, it's interesting that you both have the character, Meng, in your name." Yu Menghe continued to stare at Meng Qing and then said while laughing, "My son is a smart young man." Eeh. Lin Feng was surprised. Yu Menghe glanced at Meng Qing for a few seconds and then said a few words to break the awkward silence. Lin Feng was speechless as he smiled wryly. Meng Qing, who was still lowering her head, had a magnificent smile on her face. Yu Menghe was Lin Feng's mother, so Meng Qing needed her approval for Lin Feng and Meng Qing's relationship. It was extremely important to her. Chapter 441, The Crown Prince. Tuesday released. The light of the full moon was still shining down on the lake, but light was starting to form on the horizon. The water of the lake was still calm. It seemed like the light from the horizon was growing more and more intense. At that moment, there was nobody fighting above the lake any longer. Yu Menghe and Lin Feng had already left. After they had left, the people around the lake remained silent. Nobody knew what to say. Some people were still digesting the shocking events they had encountered that night. Lin Feng had caused everyone's hearts to race. He had shocked everybody, from the beginning to the end. First, he released a terrifying, deadly energy which he formed into a sword. He then revealed the power of his Black Lotus. He killed Ling Tian, he killed Shi Qiong, he killed Chu Qing and Chu Zhanpeng. So many extremely famous cultivators were dead because of Lin Feng. Lin Feng had achieved a miracle. When facing a strong opponent, he would show more strength. It seemed like no matter how strong his opponent was, he always had another hidden trick to deal with them. At the same time, Yu Menghe had finally revealed herself. She was the daughter of Yu Qingshan, the head of the Yu clan. 18 years ago, she was the most beautiful and most outstanding female cultivator of Shuiyu. She was one of the 4 strongest cultivators in the country. Everything about her amazed people. Yu Menghe was truly gifted. After having stayed in the dark for 18 years, she had finally revealed herself, for her son, Lin Feng. Just like 18 years before, she was still as amazing, as dazzling and as graceful as ever. She was also extremely talented when it came to cultivation. Lin Feng definitely shared her talent. In Lin Feng's veins was the blood of the Yu clan. Thanks to that, he had the heavenly dragon spirit of the Yu clan, the heavenly celestial Fang spirit. This time, the real hero of the national competition was Lin Feng. Many people were still silent on the bank of the lake. They were looking at the 9 dragons floating above the water. The person on the throne had only said 2 sentences, then he had stopped talking as if he never existed. to begin with. When Yu Menghe attacked the old man, he didn't even attempt to stop her. Until that moment, nobody knew exactly who he was. Many people believed it to be the king of Shuiyu. A gentle breeze started to blow across the lake, the dreary and desolate moonlight was starting to fade, and it was growing cold. Everybody may leave now. Finally, the one sitting on the throne spoke. He sounded calm and serene, but his words were firm. Leave? Was everybody just supposed to leave? Was the national competition over? Had it really been stopped? The crowd all let out disappointed sighs. Many of them still wanted to see the other high officials fight, but now it seemed impossible. Most of them had traveled a long way to watch. They could at least be happy that they had seen the rise of Lin Feng. He would be the newest entry to the 8 high officials. From that day on, Lin Feng was one of the 8 high officials. The dragon roared, which caused the air to shake. The water of the lake started to grow turbulent as the 9 flood dragons dashed into the sky and spread their gigantic wings. When the crowd saw those 8 mighty dragons, they started to shake. They were wondering who the dragon's master was. Who was it on the throne? It should be the king, right? At that moment, a member of the Luo Xia sect whispered, trying to guess who the person was. The king. In my opinion, he wasn't anyone powerful. Lin Feng acted so aggressively. Yu Menghe then threatened and insulted everybody, and all those people were killed in front of him. Should such a coward be called a king? Joked his interlocutor. Brother, don't talk so loud. What if he heard you? Replied the other one, surprised. How could they provoke the person sitting on that throne? His status must be immense. I'm serious, what are you scared of? Even if he hears you, our teacher would not fear him. Said the other in a loud voice. He was sucking up to his teacher, Gu Chunqiu. Alright, shut up. Shouted Gu Chunqiu. Teacher, what I am only speaking the truth. That person didn't even dare to speak up. He just hid behind the dragons and sat on his throne. If he is not a coward and a weakling, what is? Said that person even more loudly. At that moment, everybody could hear his words and many people were watching him. Gu Chunqiu frowned and then the sound of a dragon roar filled the sky. A terrifyingly brutal qi emerged and pressured everybody, which made their facial expressions change to one of fear. How terrifying! What pressure! Gu Chunqiu's face also drastically changed. That pressure was painful for him to withstand. It was brutal, aggressive and violent. At that moment, the person sitting on the throne was still silent but was obviously furious. This doesn't look good, said Gu Chunqiu in a low voice. Besides, the other members of the Luo Xia sect looked even glummer, especially the one who had just shouted out. His face turned deathly pale in the blink of an eye, absolutely void of color. That pressure had fallen onto his body and terrified him. A subtle sound spread in the air. It was as if the atmosphere was going to break under such pressure. The flood dragons' roars were growing more violent. Their roar could almost tear apart the atmosphere. Then the curtains covering the throne were turned into dust. Immediately after, the crowd saw a silhouette streak across the sky above the lake. He was looking down to the ground, so his long hair hung loosely as it flowed on the wind. He looked extremely majestic and domineering as he stood in the sky. He also looked extremely brutal and aggressive, like a monarch. His chi was as glistening as jewels but felt like death itself. Run! Shouted Gu Chunqiu, but many people couldn't escape. They were consumed by the monstrous energy. They couldn't move under such pressure. Some people even fell to their knees. They all felt ice-cold sweat dripping down their backs, especially the one who had just insulted that person. His face was colorless and his face was twitching. That brutal silhouette nosedived in a flash. Cracking sounds spread through the air and blood burst into the sky. Hatred could be seen emerging in the eyes of the people close to the victim, and in a flash, those people became corpses too. That silhouette was slicing apart his enemies in the most brutal and cruel way. Besides, those who had just witnessed that attack had started to scream. They couldn't resist the power of the pressure anymore. Their blood vessels were starting to burst, and blood filled the air. The majority of the members from the Luoxia sect were now dead. Gu Chunqiu had been slightly faster than the others and managed to escape the catastrophe. Everybody was stupefied by that brutal display. The man looked terrifying. Glancing at him once was almost enough to feel pain. His expression was extremely sharp. He was wearing a yellow changpao, and his energy was brutal, violent and monstrously strong. His brutal and violent qi gave people the feeling that there was only room for him in the world. It was if everybody else didn't have the right to exist. That person frowned and looked towards Gu Chunqiu. Those who have no respect must die. After saying that, that man released a deadly qi which moved straight towards Gu Chunqiu, whose facial expression drastically changed. How could this be happening? How was it possible? He was so terrified when seeing the power of the attack that he didn't even think about blocking. He didn't need to fight, he stood no chance at victory. The only thing he wanted was to make it out alive. Pure qi surrounded his body, and he quickly ran away. Rose-colored clouds started to form around his body. The brutal figure rushed forwards and threw himself at Gu Chunqiu. All of his movements seemed random, but he was very organized. The brutal energy was filling the atmosphere around them. Die! A terrifying voice resonated in Gu Chunqiu's brain. He abruptly started to tremble. He wanted to dodge, but how? It seemed like it was impossible at that moment. It was the first time that he had felt such fear. It seemed like that person was inside his mind. PSSSH, blood splashed everywhere. Gu Chunqiu, the patriarch of the Luoxia sect, had been killed in an instant. His body was destroyed, he was dead. Because of a few words, the Luoxia sect was annihilated. It sounded like a ridiculous lie, but this was the reality. As the crowd watched on, flabbergasted, the powerful and brutal-looking man flew through the air and landed on a dragon. He looked extremely aggressive. He was looking down on all the people around him. 18 years ago they brought us great pride, so when those seniors appeared, I would let them express themselves freely. But from today, Shuiyu is under my control and only mine. When he finished talking, his dragons roared and soared to the sky. However, the people's hearts were pounding when they recognized the man. The Crown Prince, Duan Wu Dao. Chapter 442, Meeting Again Wednesday. Chapter The prince who was silently sitting on the throne was in the sky and looked extremely aggressive, proud and arrogant. Other than the prince, who could act in such a manner? This was precisely Duan Wu Dao. He was just like the rumors said, unruly, wild and aggressive. If somebody offended him, they would die. If they respected him, he would let them live happily. Respecting him was their only choice. His dragons roared, and a strong wind rolled through the atmosphere, and Duan Wu Dao disappeared into the horizon, but the crowd couldn't calm down. First, Lin Feng had astonished them, then Duan Wu Dao. Those two young men had made people's hearts tremble. The Luoxia sect had suffered tremendous losses. Even though the powerful sects in the country had a great deal of influence and power, if they insulted or disrespected him, they would die. If someone was strong enough, they have absolute freedom to do as they wished. The power and influence of those sects were nothing in front of Duan Wu Dao and his monstrous strength. He could destroy it all in the blink of an eye. He deserves to be the first-ranked high official. Rumors say that all the other 7 high officials working together would still be weaker than him. I wonder if it's true. Thought some people at that moment. Du Wu Dao was monstrously strong. In people's eyes, Chu Zhanpeng was strong and had terrifying natural abilities, but in comparison with Duan Wu Dao, he seemed insignificant. He's become even stronger, thought Yu Tianming while looking at Duan Wu Dao vanishing into the horizon. Yu Tianming was ranked second amongst the 8 high officials. His goal had always been to surpass Duan Wu Dao, but at that moment, he had just found out that Duan Wu Dao had become even stronger. The difference between them had grown even larger. Duan Wu Dao was becoming much stronger over time. He was monstrously strong. In the lovesick forest, there was a restricted area filled with beautiful green bamboo trees, the air was pure and fresh, nature was in a beautiful harmony. In the middle of the bamboo trees, there were many small houses, they were equally spread across the bamboo forest. Those who lived there could hear the rustling from within the forest. Yu Menghe, Lin Feng and Meng Qing were walking slowly through the bamboo forest. The others had gone back alone. "Mother, have you stayed here for 18 years without leaving?" asked Lin Feng while looking at Yu Menghe. According to Duan Xinyi, after having disappeared 18 years ago, the 4 outstanding disciples had stopped showing themselves. Lin Feng's mother had always stayed in the forest, in that restricted area, she didn't allow people to see her, and she didn't see others. She lived in isolation during the past 18 years. "Indeed, I rarely go out," replied Yu Menghe while slightly nodding, which made Lin Feng sigh with sadness. That place was very beautiful, but staying there all the time was probably very lonely, at least Lin Feng wouldn't be able to do it. Lin Feng enjoyed cultivation, he wanted to become an extremely strong cultivator, he wanted to break through to the different cultivation layers in the hopes that he could soar into the heavens and never have to worry again. "Little Feng, do you think that it was terribly boring for me to stay here for 18 years? Maybe even useless?" asked Yu Menghe while looking at Lin Feng in a soft and gentle way. "Indeed," replied Lin Feng while slightly nodding. He did think that way. "Wait until you understand the lovesick forest better and we will see if you still think that way," said Yu Menghe with a mysterious smile on her face which surprised Lin Feng. Could it be that that forest hid something special? "I first want to show you a certain place," said Yu Menghe without explaining anything. The 3 of them continued walking, the path was covered with a fresh and green grass. They were walking neither slowly nor fast through the forest. In front of Lin Feng appeared many trees, they looked extremely old, and the trunks were huge. 2 or 3 people holding hands wouldn't have been able to encircle them. Those trees were at least a few hundred years old and an ancient qi was emerging from them. They then took a few more steps, and a gigantic tree appeared in front of Lin Feng, it seemed like it was holding up the sky. It was a terrifying diameter of 10 meters, each of its branches was extremely solid, they were the sturdiest branches and roots he had ever encountered. That tree was 1,000 years old and gave off an ancient feeling. Lin Feng was astonished. At the top of the tree, there were some log cabins. They looked comfortable yet simple. Lin Feng looked at the log cabins, then his eyes followed the tree to its trunk and landed on a bench made from stone. There was a silhouette calmly sitting on that bench. That person had a chisel in his hand, he was calmly carving something onto the tree. Besides, next to that man, there was an image, and that man was carving it into the tree. When Lin Feng saw that person, he frowned, but immediately after, he looked relaxed and smiled, he recognized him. Lin Feng started walking softly, without making any sound. He was walking towards that person. Meng Qing followed Lin Feng, but in a flash Yu Menghe caught her arm, pulled her back. She then put her finger in her mouth to tell Meng Qing not to make a sound, and then she smiled. Meng Qing nodded and stopped moving. She only calmly watched as Lin Feng arrived behind that person. Lin Feng was still not making any noise. He slightly bent over and looked at the chisel in the person's hand. That person was calmly carving each and every single detail onto the tree. That carving looked extremely clear and detailed. It really seemed like the sculpture was the original item. Lin Feng kept looking at that hand, and he was surprised, that person used the same strength for each movement, his movements were extremely accurate, what a skillful man. Lin Feng watched the person putting the same pressure on the chisel for each and every single movement. The depth of the carving was the same in every location. Wood shavings were floating gently on the wind. The 10,000 things of creation can be used anytime and anywhere to practice cultivation, sighed Lin Feng. That person looked like he was in a state of meditation, just like Yan Yuping Sheng when he was playing the zither. That was a path to improving one's heart and changing one's state of mind. One could break through to the next cultivation layer thanks to such practices. One could turn their power from a stream into a mighty river. When that man finished his carving, the wood shavings flew away, and he then lowered his hand. He smiled and said, "Little Feng, you're making fun of your old man because his hearing has faded with age?" said the man at that moment. The man slowly turned around and smiled softly. "Father, you have become much stronger than before, how would you go deaf?" replied Lin Feng with a magnificent smile on his face. That man was the former head of the Lin clan, Lin Hai. "It seems like father and mother stayed here and waited patiently for me to become stronger while helping where they could," thought Lin Feng. After he had arrived in the imperial city with Duan Feng, it seemed like certain things were miraculously falling into place, as if someone was attempting to guide him in secret. Lin Feng was sure that much of the help he received in the past was because of his parents. Lin Hai stood up and hugged Lin Feng's shoulders. Lin Feng had grown as tall as him. Lin Hai smiled, he looked happy. "I wouldn't have thought that my son would become so famous and stand out so much, it seems like I was wrong to think you were ordinary," said Lin Hai, sounding somewhat proud. His son had become his pride. Back then, he wanted Lin Feng to live as an ordinary person, he wanted him to have an absolutely normal daily routine, but after knew that Lin Feng could never be an ordinary person. Besides, even if Lin Feng had wanted to have a common and ordinary life, it would have been impossible for him to live a safe and peaceful life. If he were ordinary, people would bully him for being weak. Lin Feng had started his life as an ordinary young man and then, step by step, he became extremely strong. Lin Hai had never thought that such a thing would happen. After all, when Lin Feng was 15, it was impossible for him to be more ordinary. Lin Feng shook his head and said, "Father, the Lin clan. Yangzhou City. I know everything already. You handled everything correctly. Don't think of showing warm feelings to people who treat us badly. You only reacted to their provocation. You have become merciless, little Feng. Too bad that your old father's cultivation was sealed, that's the reason I went back to Yangzhou City and became the head of the Lin clan," sighed Lin Hai. Lin Hai had an unyielding personality, he had been extremely aggressive to Lin Ba Dao, Lin Hao Ran, and some other elders because they had bullied Lin Feng. Lin Hai was merciless too. He attacked Lin Hao Ran and killed an elder. Lin Hai was never a coward or a weakling. He had become the head of the Lin clan but had remained silent because his cultivation had been sealed and because of the secret regarding Yu Menghe. In the imperial city, everybody knew about the 4 outstanding cultivators who had amazed the entire country 18 years ago, and they even knew that one of them was carefree, unyielding, and proudly soared into the heavens. However, Lin Hai controlled himself and remained hidden inside the imperial city all this time. Chapter 443, The Strange Place. Thursday's first chapter. Likey, classes have started. The Dreadness. Also sorry about the last PMG chapter 1 passed out XD, alright, that's enough you two, stop talking about such sad things, let bygones be bygones, said Yu Menghe indifferently while shaking her head when she heard Lin Feng and Lin Hai. Then, Yu Menghe and Meng Qing joined them. Lin Hai looked at Yu Menghe and smiled, alright, let's not talk about the Lin clan. Those things belong to the past, so let's forget about them. But little Feng, don't worry, the Lin clan still has hope, the blood of the Lin clan will continue flowing into the veins of the new generations. There you go again, said Yu Menghe while glaring at Lin Hai, which surprised him, but he then immediately smiled wryly. When Lin Feng and Meng Qing saw Yu Menghe and Lin Hai laugh, they laughed too. They looked like they were still deeply in love, a simple and tender love. Father, you came to the imperial city, why didn't you tell me anything? Asked Lin Feng, who was surprised. Little Feng, do you know how your father left the imperial city in the past? Asked Lin Hai to Lin Feng, which surprised him. He remained silent and replied, that guy from the Imperial clan, indeed. 18 years ago, your mother had just given birth to you, but Duan Renhuang sealed my spirit and my cultivation, then he forced me to leave the Imperial City. He forbade me from entering the Imperial City, not even a single step. Back then, I felt so humiliated. I hated him, but because of you, I chose to ignore the humiliation and return to Yangzhou City. I intended to stay there forever. I had decided never to return to the Imperial City again, but you changed my mind. In the end, I stopped caring about such things and broke my promise to never return. So I returned and found your mother," said Lin Hai slowly. "Apart from you and those who live here, nobody else knows that I am in the lovesick forest. If Duan Renhuang knew that I had returned to the Imperial City, he would come to kill me. What I am trying to say is, if your life wasn't in grave danger, your mother would have never revealed herself and brought you here to see me." When Lin Feng heard Lin Hai, he remained silent. So that's how it was. His father had gone to the Imperial City to find his mother, and it was extremely dangerous. His father returning to the Imperial City was an absolute secret and he couldn't show himself to anyone. Duan Renhuang is one of the 4 geniuses from 18 years ago? Asked Lin Feng. A cold light was in his eyes. Duan Renhuang, what a powerful name. Surprisingly, his name contained the characters Huang. Indeed, that's him, Duan Renhuang. He was a very ambitious person. Now, he's probably the one who is really controlling Xueyu," said Lin Hai coldly. Duan Renhuang had injured them and forced Lin Hai to leave and never return. Their agreement was that Yu Meng he wasn't allowed to leave the Imperial City and Lin Hai wasn't allowed in the Imperial City, otherwise, the Duan clan would have continued to hunt them down. "The one who really controls Xueyu," whispered Lin Feng. "It was him. He hunted down his parent 18 years ago and disappeared afterwards. Because of him, Lin Hai was forced to enter the Imperial City in secret, not daring to show himself. Little Feng, don't think about those things too much. Maybe Duan Renhuang is not even in Xueyu anymore. With his talent and cultivation level, he could have decided to move to a better place with stronger cultivators. He probably didn't want to stay in a tiny country like Xueyu. His goal was probably Xueyu or even the vast and endless continent of the 9 clouds." Added Yu Menghe, to which Lin Feng slightly nodded. Indeed, if 18 years ago things had happened differently, Lin Feng's father, Lin Hai, would have probably left Xueyu. He would have followed his martial path and grown even stronger. Lin Feng, even though Duan Renhuang hadn't shown himself for a long time, there is another person whom you should also be careful of," added Yu Menghe. "Whom?" "The Crown Prince, Duan Wudao," replied Yu Menghe in a grave tone. She then continued, "Duan Wudao has the same blood as Duan Renhuang, they have identical temperaments too. Duan Renhuang and Duan Wudao are very close. Besides, Duan Wudao is now ranked first amongst the 8 high officials, just like Duan Renhuang was in the past. They have terrifying strength and shocking talent." "Duan Wudao," whispered Lin Feng. The Crown Prince Duan Wudao was wild and unruly, aggressive and violent. If anyone offended him, he would kill everyone involved, but if people were nice to him, he would treat them well. He was extremely aggressive when provoked. "I will be careful," nodded Lin Feng. Yu Menghe smiled and nodded while looking at Lin Feng. She then added, sounding confident, "Little Feng, don't put too much pressure on yourself. You're only 18 years old and you can already kill cultivators of the 4th Xian Qi layer. You're much stronger than your father and me at your age. Apart from Duan Wudao, none of the other high officials have more potential than you. You will be stronger than all of them soon enough, it's only a matter of time. Your objective should be to reach the top of the 8 high officials." "The top of the 8 high officials." Lin Feng raised his head and gazed solemnly into the distance. His objective needed to be more than that. Maybe his natural abilities weren't high enough, maybe he wasn't very strong, it didn't matter, he always needed to aim for higher goals. If he didn't have the talent, he would pay in blood, sweat and tears to make his dreams come true. He had to keep climbing higher, until everyone that looked down on him was forced to look up at him and watch him soar into the heavens. It was the same as with Chu Zhanpeng, nobody thought that Lin Feng could compete with him. In front of Chu Zhanpeng, he was nothing more than an insect. However, Lin Feng had never considered Chu Zhanpeng as his goal, he just focused on becoming stronger to protect the ones he cares for. He broke through every hurdle which stood in the way of his martial path. Duan Wudao, the crown prince, cannot have Xueyu as his goal, thought Lin Feng. If Duan Wudao had had Xueyu as his goal, he would have become dispirited and would have lost the motivation to grow stronger. Duan Wudao was able to push everybody aside because he always pursued the goal of becoming stronger. Little Feng, I will bring you to a certain place. Yu Meng, he suddenly said mysteriously, which surprised Lin Feng. A certain place? Could it be that there was something incredible in the lovesick forest again? Lin Feng looked at his father Lin Hai, he was smiling, which made Lin Feng even more surprised. All right, replied Lin Feng while nodding, he was truly curious. Yu Meng, he led the way and they started walking through a dense forest. Lin Feng and Meng Qing calmly followed from behind. They crossed a distance of about 1,000 steps and in front of them appeared a few trees which were around 1,000 years old as well. There were 4 ancient trees, this place was extremely dark, the trees were blotting out the sky and not a single light could enter their domain. Vines had already wrapped around the trees. In the middle of those 4 trees, there was surprisingly a cave going into the ground, one couldn't see into the cave though, it was very strange, it looked extremely deep. Yu Meng, he took a step forwards and walked into the cave. Lin Feng was stupefied. Little Feng, come, said Yu Meng, he while turning her head and smiling at Lin Feng. After that, Lin Hai entered the cave too. Lin Feng looked at them and then suddenly, Yu Meng, he and Lin Hai disappeared from sight. They disappeared inside the cave in an instant without any warning. What is this? Lin Feng was dumbstruck. How strange, 2 people had just disappeared as if they were never there to begin with. It must be an illusion, suddenly whispered Lin Feng. It had to be a form of witchcraft. Only witchcraft could lead to such a perfect illusion and alter the physical rules of the world. The path of witchcraft was in perfect harmony with nature, it could borrow the strength of the earth and the sky to reshape the land. One could use it to confuse, or to create illusions or even to kill people. Meng Qing, let's get in too, said Lin Feng while pulling Meng Qing's hand. They then slowly entered that cave. Inside that cave, everything was different. Meng Qing and Lin Feng just had the feeling that they were fainting, everything was spinning around them and suddenly, another place appeared around them. It was a bright and cloudy sky, there was a desert and the sunlight was trying to pierce through the clouds to illuminate the earth below. How is that possible? Where are we? Lin Feng's heart started pounding violently. He was astonished. Meng Qing was astonished too. When they saw how vast that desert was, they had the feeling that they were still in an illusion, but on the other hand, it felt too real, how could it be an illusion? Where are we? Lin Feng tried to keep clear-headed and asked that question to Yu Meng He and Lin Hai. Everything was too astonishing, it was so incredible that Lin Feng and Meng Qing couldn't believe it. Little Feng, the first time your mother brought me here, I was even more astonished than you, said Lin Hai while laughing. He then continued slowly, you're right, it's not an illusion, we're just in another location. This is a strange place we found connected to the lovesick forest. Chapter 444, Lin Feng's Power and Influence. Thursday's last chapter of the day, what a strange place. Lin Feng shivered. This place belonged to the real world, it wasn't an illusion. After remaining silent for a while, Lin Feng sighed. This world was full of mysteries. Things Lin Feng could never imagine continued to happen, having come to the continent of the 9 clouds after his death was already astounding. Besides, in the continent of the 9 clouds, Lin Feng didn't know how many extremely strong cultivators there were. Lin Feng had no doubts that there were cultivators who could destroy mountains and empty oceans, but what he was wondering about was, would he be strong enough to meet them? Are there people here like us? Suddenly asked Lin Feng. Lin Hai nodded and said, yes, and many of them also practice cultivation, just like us. This place is still in the continent of the 9 clouds, but it is a long, long way from Shuiyu. The cave enabled us to come here. You mean like teleportation? Asked Lin Feng, stupefied. In his previous life Lin Feng had heard about teleportation in books and had seen teleportation in movies. You know about teleportation? A flash of shock passed through Lin Hai's eyes. He was surprised. They were far from being at the level of teleporting themselves, there were some rumors about it though. Lin Hai had read about teleportation in an ancient book, but surprisingly, Lin Feng knew about it too. Teleportation really exists, thought Lin Feng, surprised. Considering Lin Hai's words, there were really some people who used teleportation in the continent of the 9 clouds. But in ancient books, people teleport themselves from one place to another, feel dizzy and nauseous. However, I have passed through the illusion and into the cave many times, but I have never had such a feeling. It feels very smooth each time without any strange sensations. It seems like the kind of teleportation they mention in books is not entirely the same as ours. Maybe our teleportation is not really a teleportation spell at all, I'm not sure either way. Said Lin Hai. Lin Feng was speechless. If that wasn't a teleportation spell and the cave illusion enabled them to move from one place to another, then what exactly was it? Lin Feng suddenly turned his head around and gazed into the distance. The desert was vast and boundless. There was absolutely nothing. Lin Feng was surprised. Father, how are we going to get back? Very easy. You just need to go stand where you arrived in the first place, close your eyes and think about going back. That is why I am saying that it doesn't seem like a teleportation spell. In the ancient books, they talk about 2 types of teleportation, a return teleportation, a one-way teleportation. For the return teleportation, the 2 places have a gate so people can cross back and forth. In the case of one-way teleportation, there is no possibility of returning, but here, we used an illusion to travel here, then we just have to think of the location to return. How strange. Lin Feng didn't understand how it worked at all. He then asked again, Father, have you ever walked around here? Have you ever asked people what the name of the place is? Are we still in the Shuiyu region? Even though those people practice cultivation too and speak the same language as us, their personality and mentality is very different. They are very stubborn, so to say. There is a city. Its name is Tianyahage, its army is extremely strong and they control everything in this region. The region is like a fortress, its inhabitants are only allowed to live inside that city. For example, they cannot go out and wander the desert freely. As far as other places are concerned, they call the outside world the ruins. They cannot take even half a step outside of their city. The ruins? They think the outside world is just made of ruins? Asked Lin Feng. I don't know. Maybe they haven't been out of their city before. Said Lin Hai while shaking his head. People there have absolute faith in their government and city. At such a level, it cannot even be called nationalism anymore. They have absolute faith in their beliefs. They believe from the bottom of their heart that the outside world is composed of only ruins. Nobody dares to question that statement, nobody dares oppose the government of Tianyahage. Their religion is omnipresent in their thoughts. Besides, they have never heard of Shuiyu, they only know that they are in the continent of the 9 clouds. What kind of horrible place is that? Lin Feng was speechless. Nationalism, religion. Nobody dared call their beliefs into question. Nobody dared oppose the government. They didn't allow anyone to go to other places and have a look. Little Feng, don't judge people and their beliefs. I discovered that place more than 10 years ago, but I still haven't really understood its culture. I just know that we are in a distant corner of the continent of the 9 clouds. After finding that out, I stopped caring. I just came here to cultivate. Yu Menghe smiled and said to Lin Feng, "Little Feng, look." Yu Menghe was pointing at something in the distance. There was a large group of people running towards them. "Little Feng, look over there too," said Yu Menghe while pointing to another place. Lin Feng turned his head and saw more silhouettes appear in the distance. 18 years, I didn't waste any of that time. All of the women I took in were poor and living miserable lives. I brought them to Lovesick Forest and taught them cultivation. Now, not only do they know cultivation, but they were all taught witchcraft too. They have all spent over 10 years training, and thanks to their efforts, they are all strong enough to help shoulder our responsibilities. Some of them even have strength surpassing the Xian Qi layer. Coupled with their witchcraft, they are all extremely strong. At that moment, the woman who was referred to as the most beautiful woman of Shuiyu didn't look soft and gentle at all. Sharp and cold lights filled her eyes. 18 years ago, because she didn't have the enough strength and because her support abandoned her, she was torn away from her husband. She hadn't even been able to see her husband and son for too long. Yu Menghe didn't want such a tragic situation to ever occur again, therefore she sheltered those girls and transformed them into powerful women. She taught them cultivation, and the girls had become a source of power and influence for her. She had built that for herself. And for her son, Lin Feng. Now, her son was together with her, she would feel less anxious if Lin Feng was protected by her secret troop of women. That way, Lin Feng would have a source of power and influence to support him at all times. He wouldn't only have his mother's power. Lin Feng would no longer get bullied and humiliated because he had no power or influence, like when the Wanshou sect continuously threatened and tried to kill him. If Lin Feng had this troop of women at his command, Lin Feng wouldn't have needed to fight at all. Those women would have slaughtered the Wanshou sect to the very last disciple. Lin Feng nodded. He had already witnessed how strong these women were. The first time was in the Lovesick Forest, when they crippled Yu Qiu's cultivation. The other time was when 6 women, all of them only in the Xian Qi layer, used the colorful ribbons to completely bind the old man's body. They had severely injured him and restrained his every movement, allowing Lin Feng kill him with ease. Their strength was terrifying. Some were even much stronger than Lin Feng. "Little Feng, all of them are now yours. Let them be your source of power and influence. Use them to make the entire country of Shuiyu tremble in fear," said Yu Menghe, which astonished Lin Feng. "Mine? But, do you think that with my strength, I still need power and influence to support myself?" said Yu Menghe, interrupting Lin Feng. "From the beginning, when I taught them cultivation, it was exclusively for you. If someday you don't need them, just free them from your service and let them live their own lives." When Lin Feng heard Yu Menghe, he remained silent. Indeed, Yu Menghe, with her strength, didn't need them. She had raised them especially for Lin Feng. Lin Feng would be able to have more power and influence with them acting as his support. "All right, I can start with my plan then," whispered Lin Feng. He then immediately nodded and said, "Mother, thank you for giving them to me." Chapter 445, Break the Spell. Haku, Lord of the Edit. Tuesday's chapter. It had been over 2 years since the Wanshou sect, the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, Ice and Snow Mountain Village, and the Haoyu sect acted together to destroy the Yunhai sect. The elders of the Yunhai sect and Patriarch Nan Gongling sacrificed their lives to save Lin Feng. They all fought with their lives on the line to protect him. It was a tragic yet moving event. The blood of the Yunhai sect formed a river which ran through the stormy gorge. Once Lin Feng and Meng Qing had gained enough strength, they would return to see that river of blood. Since the Yunhai sect was destroyed, Lin Feng always carried the ring of the Patriarch. He wanted to bring the Yunhai sect back to life. He wanted to avenge all past grievances. All the members of the Yunhai sect were sacrificed to save Lin Feng. Even after gaining tremendous strength, Lin Feng could never forget the promise he made. Since the bloodbath on that day, Lin Feng had never forgotten the Yunhai sect. He remembered each moment clearly. Lin Feng would have his revenge. It was only a matter of time, nothing more. Lin Feng had already broken through to the second Xian Qi layer, but relying on his abilities, he could easily kill cultivators of the third Xian Qi layer, and killing people of the fourth Xian Qi layer was only slightly more difficult. Besides, he had a strong, battle-hardened army behind him, and at that moment, he also received the powerful women raised by Yu Menghe. With all of these people under his control, it was a good opportunity to deal with matter regarding the Yunhai sect. Concerning those who had destroyed the Yunhai sect, none of them would be able to escape judgment. Lin Feng raised his head and looked to the sky. The sky reminded him of the deep look that always appeared in Protector Kong's eyes, which was always in contrast to Protector Bei's soft and gentle smile. He could remember how Nan Gongling didn't waste any words. Lin Feng was moved and touched by the lives that were sacrificed to protect him. He would never forget their faces as they opened a path for him. Back then, Lin Feng had only broken through to the Ling Qi layer. He was still an immature young man, but Protector Kong and Protector Bei still sacrificed their lives for him. Protector Kong, relying on his shadow spirit, could have easily escaped, but he hadn't. He had stayed and fought with all his power, allowing Lin Feng to escape safely. Besides, Protector Bei accompanied Lin Feng to the temple, but he turned back and chose to die while fighting with the others. Lin Feng felt like he was reliving all of the moments that lead him to this day. Duan Tian Lang. There was a name which would remain in Lin Feng's mind. Lin Feng could see Duan Tian Lang's mocking face as he closed his eyes, causing his expression to suddenly become colder. Duan Tian Lang had lived far too long, Lin Feng needed to kill him. Besides, the holy courtyard of Shuiyu also needed to be erased from existence. When Yu Menghe heard that Lin Feng accepted the women, she smiled. In Shuiyu, many people wanted Lin Feng dead. Lin Feng now had even more power to protect himself. Even if he only had a few of them to protect him, he would be in no danger. Little Feng, their troop has 36 in total. Each of the 36 are extremely strong and have practiced witchcraft. You can deploy them in a 6x6 formation, which will allow them to cast 6 spells. You can also deploy them in a 4x9 formation and they can cast 4 strong spells or 9 weaker spells. In these formations, they will combine their power to unleash a spell. If you use 9, their power will combine into a single spell which will allow them to unleash their strongest spells. It allows them to fight with maximum strength. Yu Menghe explained to Lin Feng. Of course, Lin Feng was going to have them under his control, so he needed to know what abilities they had. When Lin Feng heard Yu Menghe, he was a bit surprised. They could all use witchcraft and there were 36 women in total. They had the power to slaughter an endless number of strong enemies, especially as they grew stronger. I created this as a special unit designed to use witchcraft. They are all able to act and fight together in perfect synchronization. The second reason that I chose them was to free them from their tragic fates. After I took them in, they were reborn, they were given a second life in which they are all sisters. This bond that they form together also increases their ability to use witchcraft. Yu Menghe smiled and said, Lin Feng, do you want to give it a try? Alright. Nodded Lin Feng. Immediately after, he started walking towards a group of women. There were 6 beautiful women wearing white clothes. They were sitting on the ground in a circle, their eyes were closed but a strange light was emerging from their bodies. The atmosphere of the desert was absolutely silent, and there was no wind to break the eerie atmosphere. Lin Feng was slowly walking towards the 6 women. He was about 10 meters away from them, then as he took another step, an extremely strong wind started to blow. It was ice cold and Lin Feng felt like the wind was piercing through his flesh. In the middle of the calm desert, a piercingly cold wind had suddenly unleashed itself on Lin Feng. But Lin Feng didn't stop walking forwards, he continued. The air continued to grow colder as it pierced deeper into his bones. The golden sand started to spiral across the ground and eventually started to rise into the air. It continued to spin in the air until it formed a small tornado. He was now surrounded by 6 small tornadoes. A deadly energy emerged from the tornadoes and attacked Lin Feng in the blink of an eye. Lin Feng was surprised. What a pure and unadulterated killing intent. Nothing was being held back. Boom! A violent sandstorm was suddenly unleashed. The small tornadoes started to merge together and form a terrifying storm that spun around Lin Feng. Lin Feng couldn't see anything, he was surrounded by the terrifying storm. Lin Feng was astonished, he also released some terrifying deadly energy. Without mercy for his opponents, his deadly qi immediately burst into the sky and poured into the atmosphere. Lin Feng was releasing more and more deadly energy, his murderous energy was indestructible. That terrifying deadly qi rolled across the sky. The cold sandstorm seemed like it was started to lose its power, as if it was starting to grow weaker. It seemed like Lin Feng's deadly energy now had enough power to suppress the sandstorm. At that moment, the deadly energy moved like waves, moving back and forth then crashing down. The wind was slowly fading, as if it was never there to begin with. Young Master's deadly energy is extremely strong, it is also very pure and dense. It is much stronger than the deadly energy contained within our spell. If we fought, we would definitely lose, said one of the 6 women while opening her eyes. Her voice sounded clear and melodious. Chun Feng, now is not the time to give face, you stopped using your full power. He would definitely lose if you didn't give him face, said Yu Menghe while laughing and looking at Lin Feng. When she saw that Lin Feng looked embarrassed, she laughed even more and said, Little Feng, don't think that those 6 tornadoes are not strong, it was only the beginning of their spell. If the 6 tornadoes really merge as one, the strength you released a moment ago would only provide you with a few extra moments of life. Lin Feng looked pensive. With the deadly energy that he had just released, he wouldn't have won against a genuine formation spell. Of course, if you spare no effort and use every ounce of your strength, you would have the power to overcome the spell and win against these 6, said Yu Menghe explaining to Lin Feng in detail. If he used every ounce of his power, he would be able to defeat the 6 cultivators surrounding him, but there were still 30 other members. Yu Menghe's troop wasn't considered a weak force at all. In 18 years, Yu Menghe had spared no effort in order to create such a powerful group. Mother, tell them to use their full strength, said Lin Feng while slightly grinning. His smile was filled with confidence which stupefied Yu Menghe. She immediately said, Chun Feng, the young master wants you to use your full strength, you know what you have to do. I know, replied Chun Feng while smiling at Yu Menghe. Very quickly, their tornadoes rose into the air and the tornadoes began to encircle Lin Feng again. Little Feng is still too young. He has too much confidence, maybe he will need to be injured by the spell before he understands, thought Yu Menghe while smiling. Lin Feng will win, said Meng Qing at that moment in a low voice which stupefied Yu Menghe. She then said to Meng Qing, how come you believe in Little Feng so much? I believe in him more than I believe in myself. If he says that he is going to try something, it means that he has a plan to win, explained Meng Qing, to which Yu Menghe shook her head and said, while smiling, Meng Qing, you have too much confidence in him. Of course, Yu Menghe was actually extremely happy to see Meng Qing's faith in Lin Feng. Yu Menghe was still smiling and when she suddenly heard a large impact. The sandstorm had stopped blowing and the 6 women were blown away. Yu Menghe was astonished. Immediately after, she saw Lin Feng appear in front of her again, he looked calm and serene as if nothing had happened. It seems like you know my son much better than me, said Yu Menghe to Meng Qing. Lin Feng had won, and he won very quickly. In the blink of an eye, he had broken the spell. Yu Menghe turned to Lin Feng and asked, you understand the intricacies of spells? Yes, I do, replied Lin Feng while nodding. In Yangzhou City, he had spent a long time researching spells and formations. That sandstorm spell formed from 6 tornadoes wasn't that complex, it was very simple for someone with the know-how to break. Chapter 446, Yen Dang Mountain Likey. Whoops, this was lurking here. Sorry it came out late today, my birthday lols. Wednesday's chapter. Yen Dang was the name of a mountain chain to the northwest of Yangzhou City. Many influential groups resided within this mountain chain. At the top of the highest mountain in the Yen Dan mountain chain, there was a vast and boundless palace. The owner of that palace was respected and revered by everyone within the surrounding 100 kilometers. That palace was a restricted area though, ordinary people couldn't enter it and even many nobles didn't dare try to enter. That was due to the fact that the owner of the palace was an old man with an extremely bad temper. The old man's specialty was swords. When he was angry, he would go out and destroy a small mountain. He had the power to turn mountains into ashes, not to mention human beings. Besides, that old man had 2 disciples, a young girl and a young man. They were both extraordinarily talented, they could even go head-to-head with the smaller influential groups within the country by themselves, they were very strong. At that moment, in the palace, there was a terrifying deadly energy floating in the atmosphere. It then dashed into the sky, making the air shake so violently that the ferocious beasts in the region started to run in the opposite direction. The deadly energy was so strong and powerful that it could cause one's soul to shake. Boom! The deadly energy exploded again as a silhouette appeared in the sky and then landed on the top of the palace. He was releasing even more monstrous deadly energy. At that moment, the old man didn't look like an old man at all, he looked like a beast. Behind the old man, there was a beautiful girl. Her eyes were cold and filled with killing intent. Lin Feng had killed her fellow disciple, she hated him, they had to avenge her fellow disciple's death. She hadn't gone to look for Lin Feng because she knew that she didn't have the power to go against him. Instead, she ran day and night until she returned to Yen Dang Mountain, so she could tell her master of Ling Tian's death. If her master got involved, it would without a doubt be the end of Lin Feng. You stay here, I, Ji Guang, will go collect his head and bring it back here for all to see. I will avenge my beloved disciple, said the old man coldly. The girl looked at him in a calm and solemn way while nodding, and then she replied, Yes, master. The old man released a pure qi which broke the stones under his feet. He jumped into the air and started to run across the sky, however, shortly after he moved into the sky, a sword beam appeared in the valley and rushed towards him. This stupefied the old man. He didn't hurry to leave and waited for the person to arrive before him. It was a man who looked around 30 years old. He looked smart and handsome, his eyebrows were sharp like swords. His eyes were the eyes of a madman who would destroy everything with his sword. His aura was swift and sharp, like an accomplished sword cultivator. Ji Guang, said the man in a cold tone which surprised Ji Guang, who was still fixedly staring at him. Who are you? Asked Ji Guang. The man was filled with killing intent, but at the same time, he looked like an extremely powerful opponent. I've heard that you, Ji Guang, are an expert at using swords. When you hold a sword in your hands, you become a messenger of death, everybody that encounters your sword is sent to their grave. I think that we could learn from each other, let us compare notes, said the man in a cold tone. A terrifying battle energy emerged from him, that person was challenging Ji Guang's sword. The girl who was behind Ji Guang frowned. That man was only about 30 years old and he was challenging her master to a sword duel, how arrogant. A terrifying sword energy emerged from the man's body. That sword energy was monstrously sharp and the most terrifying thing about it was the lack of emotion. It was as if all his emotions were void, as if his sword was the only thing in the world and everything else was merely straw dogs. Zhuge Wuqing. Ji Guang was astonished. Even though he had never seen Zhuge Wuqing, in Shuiyu, apart from him, nobody else had such a powerful and emotionless sword. Two powerhouses were fighting with swords. They were both extremely famous sword cultivators. One was Ji Guang, the other one was Zhuge Wuqing. Ji Guang also released a terrifying sword energy which covered the skies. It seemed like there were millions of extremely bright lights which twinkled in the sky. It was dazzling. The entire Yan Dang mountain chain was illuminated by his sword energy. Who is fighting? What a terrifying sword energy! The people from the mountain chain started to notice the scene above them. They all started shaking under the pressure of such powerful sword energy. That sword energy was definitely from Ji Guang's sword. Surprisingly, there was another extremely strong sword cultivator who was fighting against him. Who was strong enough to compare with Ji Guang's sword? The girl behind Ji Guang started shaking. What a terrifying sword! Zhuge Wuqing, since you have come to fight, use your full strength. The sound of a sword unsheathing filled the air and a sword appeared in the old man's hand. It looked like a ray of light. A gigantic sword spirit then emerged from behind Ji Guang. The spirit was unleashing a shocking sword energy. I, Zhuge Wuqing, haven't directly used my sword for 18 years, but today, in front of a venerable old man like you, I will unsheath my sword, said Zhuge Wuqing calmly. A simple-looking sword sheath appeared behind his back. It was shaking intensely and the sound of a sword being unsheathed spread through the air. Zhuge Wuqing had unsheathed a blood-red emotionless sword. Ji Guang, your life is over, said Zhuge Wuqing looking as calm as before, but his voice was ice-cold and emotionless. Those two incredible sword cultivators were going to fight to death. If one of them managed to reach the other with their sword, they would definitely kill the other. There would only be one person walking away today. Ji Guang's heart was palpitating. Nobody said anything, as the two sword energies started rolling through the atmosphere and colliding against each other. An extremely bright sword qi and an emotionless sword qi illuminated the atmosphere in their own respective way. A sudden wind emerged as the sword energies rose into the skies and crashed against the other. Suddenly, the two silhouettes disappeared from sight. The pressure released by the sword energies was intense. Everyone under that pressure felt like they were going to be ripped apart. The sky was tearing and ripping sounds filled the air. In a flash, the two silhouettes reappeared. An extremely bright sword qi and an emotionless sword qi emerged with them. It seemed like everything else had disappeared from sight and only the two swords remained in the air. This was the confrontation of two amazing sword cultivators. The stronger a sword cultivator was, the more dangerous and terrifying their battles were to watch. The two fighters then returned to their original positions. Ji Guang looked at Zhuge Wuqing and said, "Was this only for the advancement your sword?" Zhuge Wuqing shook his head. He had stopped stubbornly following the path of the sword for a long time now. You lost your beloved disciple and wanted to use your sword to avenge him. However, the one you want to harm is somebody that I will use my sword to protect, said Zhuge Wuqing calmly. Ji Guang looked like he understood the deeper motives behind Zhuge Wuqing's actions. I understand, whispered Ji Guang. Without any further movements, the sound of a sword cutting through flesh filled the air. A fountain of blood burst into the air and Ji Guang's body separated into two parts. Ah! The girl screamed. She was terrified and started shaking from head to toe. There was no longer any strength remaining in her body and her face had turned deathly pale. Kacha! Boom! The palace at the top of the mountain started to tremble and then suddenly a huge crevice appeared in the center, as if it had been cut in two. Sunlight could now pass through the large crevice. It was an astonishing sight. Zhuge Wuqing turned around, his body transformed into a sword and he pierced through the atmosphere as he streaked across the sky. As he disappeared from sight, a few drops of blood could be seen falling from his sword. After Zhuge Wuqing left, the girl was left alone in the middle of the empty palace. She continued to cry throughout the night. All of this had been too shocking for her. Her master had lost his life in mere moments from a single sword strike. The memory of Lin Feng killing Ling Tian with a single sword strike seemed to overlap with the current images in her mind. Lin Feng killed Ling Tian just like Zhuge Wuqing killed her master, Ji Guang. At that moment, this little girl felt an endless ocean of regret. Because she had made a small remark that convinced Ling Tian to go to Yangzhou City, he was now dead. Because of her, her master Ji Guang wanted to kill Lin Feng and was killed instead. She felt endless guilt. Everything she did was a joke. It was laughably pathetic. Her incredibly powerful fellow disciple had been killed. Her master that incited fear in so many people, had been killed. Lin Feng had no idea about the events that were occurring at this moment. How could he know that Zhuge Wuqing traveled to Yendang in order to kill Ji Guang if he moved against Lin Feng? Lin Feng didn't even know who Master Ji Guang was, and he also didn't know that if Zhuge Wuqing hadn't intervened, he might have found himself in a very dangerous situation in the future. In the desert, Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. However, his terrifyingly powerful soul was floating through the air. The sand was rolling across the ground as the wind blew. Lin Feng started to focus and used his pure qi to control the movement of the yellow sand. There was currently a scroll laying in front of the cross-legged Lin Feng, one that he unfolded. On the scroll, one could see various text and pictures. It was a formation. At the top of the scroll were the word, Nine Palace Dragon Formation. Lin Feng had found this formation inside the ring of the old man that he killed during the national competition and was using this time to learn it. Chapter 447, Tianya Hage. Yu Menghe, Lin Hai and Meng Qing were looking at the storm of golden sand that started to form. The formation was slowly coming into being, which shocked everyone. They were all looking at each other with disbelief. Yu Menghe was stunned, but pleasantly surprised. She asked, "Has little Feng learnt any witchcraft or formations before?" "I don't know. But considering his vast knowledge, he has probably learnt about witchcraft and formations before. Besides, his understanding of it doesn't seem to be superficial," replied Lin Hai. Yu Menghe nodded in agreement. The Nine Palace Dragon Formation was very famous within the imperial city. If one managed to unleash the formation, it could trap other people inside. If someone who wasn't strong enough was locked inside, he wouldn't be able to break out and would remain a prisoner forever. Lin Feng, only after studying it for a brief time, was able to make the rudimentary form of the formation appear. It was an extremely rare occurrence to see someone so talented using the formation. "Master, look," said one of the girls in white. She was pointing into the distance. Those girls had been raised by Yu Menghe, they all respected her as their master. Yu Menghe raised her head and saw a storm of golden sand. It was slowly transforming into 9 palaces. Floating in the air were 9 palaces formed completely from the sand. "Not bad." Yu Menghe smiled. The 9 palaces had already taken shape. After a short time, Lin Feng would be able to cast the 9 Palace Dragon Formation. How could she not be happy for her son? However, at that moment, Lin Feng abruptly opened his eyes were filled with a deep and mysterious expression. "Go!" Lin Feng pointed out with his finger and the golden sand started to whistle through the air. At the same time, a dragon's roar filled the sky. The golden sand filled the air and eventually surrounded Yu Menghe and the others. Suddenly, they were all standing in a completely different location. They were all inside a golden room. They were together a moment ago, but at that moment, they were each alone inside a golden room. They were all trapped inside an identical golden room. Illusion. Yu Menghe was shaking and her face was frozen. A moment before, she thought that Lin Feng still needed some time before he was able to use the formation, but at that moment, she realized that she was wrong. Lin Feng had managed to cast the 9 Palace Dragon Formation. "Mother, how is it?" asked Lin Feng as he appeared in front of her. "Not bad," said Yu Menghe while smiling. She was impressed by her son's talent. He was extremely talented on the path of cultivation, but he also had the power to cast spells and formations. At that moment, Yu Menghe wasn't aware that Lin Feng could also concoct pills and fabricate weapons. She was unaware of how talented he was in a great deal of areas. His soul was extremely powerful compared to others, so no matter what he did, his talent would be extraordinary. Even his understanding of the qi was much more advanced than others with the same amount of power. His soul was extremely powerful, which allowed him to sense the many different domains, including witchcraft, alchemy and many others. No matter what Lin Feng attempted, he would be beyond the ordinary. Lin Feng's soul was very different from an ordinary person. Because he cultivated the surplus souls technique, his soul was several times stronger than others. The fact that Lin Feng had immediately appeared beside her in the illusion didn't surprise Yu Menghe. Lin Feng was the one controlling the formation. Using the power of his soul, he would be able to freely travel throughout his illusion. If he wanted to change anything inside the illusion, it would only take a thought. He had absolute control. So if he wanted to enter the illusion, it only took a single thought. This is my limit, I cannot hold it for much longer. It looks like I will still need some time to master it. I need to reach the point of making it appear in a flash and have it remain indefinitely, only then have I mastered this formation spell. When Yu Menghe heard Lin Feng, she nodded while looking gratified. In such a short time, Lin Feng was already able to achieve so much. Lin Feng didn't look proud or arrogant at all, he was only focused on mastering the formation. Even though Lin Feng could look or sound arrogant when dealing with his enemies, he wasn't really an arrogant person. On the path of cultivation, there was no room for arrogance. He would only act arrogantly in front of other people, as a means to prevent them from seeing him as weak. Mother, I need your help with this. I want to see how easy it is to break my illusion. Can you use your power to break it? Asked Lin Feng. He wanted to see how much power his illusion could withstand. All right. Yu Menghe nodded as she released a shockingly powerful qi. Lin Feng quickly moved away from her. Yu Menghe's silhouette flickered and she flew into the air with her fist raised above her head. Her fist immediately collided with the roof of the golden room. Kacha! The golden rooms seemed to shake and sounded like they were about to crack apart. Yu Menghe was stupefied, but immediately after, she smiled. After her punch, cracking sounds unceasingly spread through the air as the golden rooms started to shatter into oblivion. After, a rumbling sound spread through the air and the illusion disappeared completely from sight. Lin Feng and the others were back to the golden desert where they were previously. The different parts of the 9-palace dragon formation were dependent on each other. If a single spell was broken, the entire formation would collapse. Lin Feng sighed with disappointment. When facing an extremely strong cultivator, he could attempt a million different methods, but a single punch was enough to defeat him and break his illusion. When the others appeared in the desert again, they looked towards Lin Feng. Everyone was still shocked. Lin Feng was extremely talented. Surprisingly, he was able to learn the spells and create the formation in such a short time. That was talent. Mother, how powerful was it? Asked Lin Feng to his mother. Yu Menghe had a magnificent smile on her face. She nodded and said, Little Feng, you are at the second Xian Qi layer, but by using a single spell, you will be able to imprison cultivators of the fourth Xian Qi layer without problem. When Lin Feng heard Yu Menghe, he smiled. When a cultivator could use witchcraft, they had the complete advantage when fighting against those with a similar level of power. Otherwise, what would be the point in studying spells and formations? If spells provided no benefit, then it would have been safer to focus solely on cultivation. Cultivators who were extremely talented when using spells could even imprison and kill cultivators who had cultivation levels which were much higher than theirs. With an extremely high cultivation, there was nothing that was impossible. However, spells were able to close the gaps between cultivation levels, making the impossible a reality. Therefore, many people dedicated their lives to witchcraft and the study of spells and formations. Lin Feng wouldn't be one of those people. For him, spells and alchemy were tools he could use to benefit his cultivation. With that spell, he wouldn't be afraid of fighting against multiple cultivators at the 4th Xian-Qi layer. Little Feng, you have spent a great deal of time on your cultivation, let's take this chance to go back and rest, said Yu Menghe when she saw that Lin Feng was working so hard. She also felt worried. After all, how could any mother bear to watch her son living such a harsh life? But Lin Feng shook his head and said, Mother, I want to go to Tianyahage and visit the city. Go to Tianyahage? Yu Menghe was stupefied and remained silent. She knew nothing about the mysterious city. She really hoped that Lin Feng wouldn't have any ideas about going there. But Lin Feng wanted to go, so she couldn't stop him. Chen Feng and Xia Yu will go with you, said Yu Menghe while nodding. No need, Meng Qing and I will go alone, that's more than enough, replied Lin Feng while shaking his head. But, okay, replied Yu Menghe when she saw how firm Lin Feng was being. She decided to accept his decision. Little Feng, Tianyahage, even though it's a city, it's huge, even gigantic. It is much, much, much bigger than our imperial city in Shuiyu. Tianyahage has a central district, which is filled with terrifyingly strong cultivators. If you go there, be extremely careful. It would be better for you to stay away from the central district, warned Lin Hai. He didn't feel at ease. They were in a foreign land, dangers could be everywhere. Don't worry, father, I will be careful, replied Lin Feng while smiling. There were some terrifyingly strong cultivators in the central district of Tianyahage. Could there be cultivators of the Tianqi layer or higher? Concerning Lin Feng, he would leave Shuiyu sooner or later, it was only a matter of time. He would go and explore the continent of the 9 clouds to meet more powerful cultivators. At that moment, he was in front of Tianyahage. It was a great opportunity to meet incredibly strong cultivators and see what attracted them here. Meng Qing. Lin Feng looked to Meng Qing. Of course, she would agree to go with him. She walked towards him without a word and they both shot into the distance, leaving only a cloud of golden sand behind. Lin Hai looked at Lin Feng's back and smiled. Menghe, Lin Feng has become a true man. Chapter 448, The Wolves of the Desert Edit, Likey I just got home? Thursday chapter Lin Feng and Meng Qing were running across the desert and were surrounded by a cloud of sand. The desert was extremely vast. Lin Feng and Meng Qing had already been running for a few hours but they still hadn't made it through the desert. What annoyed Lin Feng the most was that because of the constant sandstorms, they could only run aimlessly across the sand and they didn't know if they were heading the right way. Meng Qing, sorry for not asking for more details before I decided to leave, said Lin Feng when he saw that Meng Qing was covered in sand and tired from having to run. He felt guilty. He had thought that the desert would be much smaller and they could immediately cross it, but after a few hours, apart from a few silhouettes in the distance, they hadn't encountered anything at all. Don't blame yourself, said Meng Qing while shaking her head. She gazed into the distance and pointed while saying, Look, there are some people over there. Let's go over and ask them. Lin Feng looked in the direction that Meng Qing was pointing and saw a few silhouettes moving through the desert. He then said, Let's go and see. The two of them started running and very quickly, they arrived in front of those people. The group consisted of 4 boys and a girl. They seemed to be wearing peculiar clothes, their hair was also messy and unkempt. Their tan skin paired with their messy hair made them seem wild. However, the girl was very different. She seemed to be quite pretty. When the 5 people saw Lin Feng arrive, they all glanced at him. Lin Feng only looked back at them. They were in foreign territory, so it was better to see how the low 0 calories would behave. Hello, may I help you? Asked the girl, taking the initiative to speak first, which relieved Lin Feng. Even though she had said only a few words, Lin Feng could see that those people weren't much different from them. We have gotten lost in the desert. Could you help us find our way? Asked Lin Feng politely. When those people heard Lin Feng, they were stupefied. They got lost in the desert. They were probably young nobles who never left home, otherwise how would they get lost? Besides, the two of them looked very clean and elegant compared to the group. Lin Feng was handsome and looked very wise for his age. Meng Qing, even though she was wearing a fine veil which covered her face, they could still see that her features were very beautiful. There is only one direction to go, continue moving west and you will eventually leave the desert, but we're heading that way so we can go together, said the girl while smiling. Her eyes were sparkling, she looked extremely enthusiastic. All right, said Lin Feng. How could he refuse? Mixing with the local people would be a great way to learn about their culture and traditions. My name is Nuana, said the girl while smiling at Lin Feng. She was happy to hear Lin Feng's quick response. Lin Feng, replied Lin Feng. Lin Feng, whispered Nuana. She then asked, Lin Feng, if you are lost in the desert, how did you get out here? I had nothing to do at home so I wanted to explore, replied Lin Feng in a soft voice while smiling. You are from the city? Asked Nuana, which surprised Lin Feng. From the city? Could it be that these people were not from Tianyahage? You could say that, yes, replied Lin Feng while nodding. His response was extremely quick. Nuana didn't doubt his words. Lin Feng and Meng Qing looked so clean and elegant. If they had lost their way in the desert, it probably meant that they were from the city. You're so brave, surprisingly you have come all the way into the territory of the wolves of the desert, sighed Nuana, which stupefied Lin Feng. The wolves of the desert? Don't tell me that you don't know about the wolves of the desert. Nuana was speechless. What kind of young master was Lin Feng? Surprisingly, he had never heard that the outer areas of the city were the territory of the wolves of the desert. Lin Feng smiled wryly. It was his first time in this land. The fact that he didn't know about them wasn't strange at all. Lin Feng, in the city, there might be people who can protect you, but outside of the city, in the territory of the wolves of the desert, you have to be very careful. They are extremely wild, aggressive, brutal and violent. If you see them, you have to avoid them. They are the strongest group outside of the city. There is no way for us to fight against them, explained Nuana to Lin Feng. Lin Feng understood the whole story a bit better. The wolves of the desert were just a powerful group of bandits. Thrum. 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 The ground was starting to shake beneath their feet as a huge cloud of sand could be seen. In the distance, a group riding horses appeared. Nuana and the others were frozen in fear. They raised their heads and looked towards the group in the distance. When they saw the huge cloud of sand, their facial expressions gradually became grave. Shit! Speak of the devil. Lin Feng, those people are from the wolves of the desert. We have to go, we can't afford to cross their path. They might decide to attack us. While talking, Nuana started running. Immediately, the four others from her group followed closely behind her. Lin Feng was dumbstruck. He glanced at the horses in the distance and then followed behind Nuana. They had to hurry if they wanted to avoid the group of bandits. But what surprised Nuana was that the sound of the galloping horses was growing louder and louder as if they were coming closer. Nuana glanced back and her face turned deathly pale. They were actually moving in their direction. Oh no! Nuana was surprised. She started to run even faster, but how could she run faster than horses? Very quickly, the horses arrived and then surrounded them. They then started to run circles around them, forming a ring of sand. In the middle of the cloud of sand, the bandits looked like they found the situation amusing, especially the one leading them, who was a young man. He looked like he was about to burst into laughter. He was fixedly staring at Meng Qing and Nuana, while looking particularly perverted. Nuo Na and her friends pulled a long face. What they feared the most was actually happening. Surprisingly, they had come across the wolves of the desert. Venerable and respected young man, hello, we are disciples of the Blackwood tribe. I am the daughter of the head of the Blackwood tribe. We have accidentally crossed your path, I hope that you will not be offended and let us go, said Nuo Na in a polite tone. At the same time, she declared her social status in an attempt to make the wolves of the desert less aggressive. The horses finally stopped galloping. That evil-looking young man smiled coldly and said, "The daughter of the head of the Blackwood tribe? Wow, amazing, terrific. You almost scared me. Ha ha ha." All those wolves of the desert burst into laughter. It seemed like Nuo Na was trying to use her social status as a deterrent. But those people didn't care at all, it seemed like Nuo Na and the others were terribly unlucky this time. "How should I deal with that girl of the Blackwood tribe?" said the young man while laughing like a madman. He was asking the group of bandits. "Let's take her back. Of course, we should give her to the second young master, she can be your 8th wife," joked the group while laughing in a hysterical way which made Nuo Na's face turn deathly pale. Those people had just called him second young master. Second young master, I didn't know that such a venerable and respectable person as you would appear in this place. Please forgive my offense, the Blackwood tribe will be extremely grateful for your kindness, said Nuo Na, whose face was still deathly pale. She sounded very sincere though. Lin Feng frowned and looked at the group coldly. Those wolves of the desert were exactly the way he would imagine a group of outlaws to be. They were just horse-mounted bandits, nothing more. But they were powerful, which was why Nuo Na and the others were scared. "Perhaps it's time for 8 wives," said the second young master while laughing again. Immediately after, he started galloping away at full speed. I hope that Nuo Na has heard and understood. During midday, I will come to the Blackwood tribe and will propose a marriage alliance between us. All of you must be there, not a single person is allowed to be absent. If one of you is missing, we will exterminate the Blackwood tribe, said the second master, whose silhouette was disappearing into the horizon. The other members of the wolves of the desert then followed him, leaving a huge cloud of yellow sand behind them. Nuo Na's face was turned deathly pale. A marriage alliance she would be forced into becoming the wife of the second master of the wolves of the desert. Besides, she would become the 8th wife, or maybe even the 9th or the 10th. "Nuo Na, let's hurry and go back. We will talk to our head," said one of the boys to Nuo Na. He looked anxious. "Leave." Nuo Na looked like she was about to cry. She then said in a feeble voice, "It seems that I'm the one to blame. Outside of the city, the wolves of the desert are everywhere." Chapter 449, The Tribe Edit. Likey, next one will be when I wake back up or when someone else takes over. Friday chapter. Nuo Na turned around and looked at Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, is that beautiful girl your wife?" "Wife?" Lin Feng was stupefied, but he immediately smiled warmly and replied, "Yes, she is." When Meng Qing, who was sitting next to him, heard him, she felt very embarrassed, but at the same time, a sweet and warm feeling invaded her heart. "You should both run away, quickly. Go back to the city," said Nuo Na. Lin Feng looked surprised and replied, "But you heard that guy, he said that tomorrow at midday, we all have to be there, not a single one of us should be missing, otherwise he will destroy your tribe." "I heard him, but I cannot get you involved. The second young master of the wolves of the desert is probably interested in your wife as well, you should run away as soon as possible," said Nuo Na. She was advising Lin Feng to leave. "What about you? What if a catastrophe occurs?" Lin Feng was surprised. He wouldn't have thought that Nuo Na would advise them to leave when she was in such a critical situation. I will sacrifice myself and marry the second young master of the wolves of the desert, then nothing bad will happen to the Blackwood tribe," said Noana. "No, you can't do that, how can you marry him?" said one of the young men who was shaking his head frenetically. When Noana saw his facial expression, she smiled wryly and said, "Hey Sean, I'm sorry. I will not be able to marry you in the future when you are the strongest warrior in the tribe. Noana, I will never let you marry one of the wolves of the desert," replied Hey Sean with a barbaric expression on his face. He kept shaking his head over and over again. Noana was smiling wryly. What bad luck it was for them to encounter the second young master of the wolves of the desert. "Noana," said Lin Feng at that moment, which made Noana turn her head towards him. "How strong are the wolves of the desert?" asked Lin Feng. Noana looked at Lin Feng and immediately started speaking slowly, "Very strong. Actually, the wolves of the desert are a tribe, they are the strongest tribe outside of the city. They are much stronger than most of the other tribes, which is why they roam freely. Apart from them, there are many other tribes that roam the desert and many of those tribes could destroy my tribe easily." "What about their battle strength?" asked Lin Feng again. "The wolves of the desert is a tribe divided into many smaller tribes. In order to become the head of one of those branches, a cultivator must have at least broken through to the Xian Qi layer. They are also the persists of the tribe and are extremely strong. The wolves of the desert has many strong cultivators. The weakest of them are of the Ling Qi layer. Besides, the head of the entire tribe, the king of the wolves, is extremely strong, but I don't know how powerful he is. What I can guarantee is that he has at least broken through the first Xian Qi layer into the second, or maybe more. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to assume his position as king of the wolves." After Noana explained those things to Lin Feng, he remained silent for a while, his eyes were twinkling. "Second Xian Qi layer. Let's go to the Blackwood tribe together," said Lin Feng at that moment, which stupefied Noana. She didn't understand why Lin Feng wanted to come. "Lin Feng, are you sure?" asked Noana solemnly. "I am sure," said Lin Feng while nodding. He smiled and added, "You still have to show me the way out of the desert." When Noana heard Lin Feng, she smiled. Since Lin Feng insisted, she wouldn't try to convince him any longer. She only nodded and said, "All right, let's all go back to the Blackwood tribe then." It was exactly how Noana said. They continued heading directly to the west. After a while, they were out of the desert, but the landscape didn't look anything like Lin Feng had imagined. The land was still a vast and boundless desert, but there were exotic trees growing from the sand to form a jungle. As far as Lin Feng could see, there was sand and exotic trees. Of course, many tribes were probably living in the jungle or roaming the open desert, just like the wolves of the desert. The Blackwood tribe was situated on a hill. There was 500-600 households built around the hill. It looked more like a fortified hill village. As expected, it's just a small tribe, thought Lin Feng when he saw the small fences and simple defenses that were erected. Their defenses didn't look good at all, they were very basic defenses. They were able to stop normal people and wild beasts, but were far from being able to stop most cultivators. When Noana came back, all the people started to greet her. Nobody asked her what she had obtained during her trip though, everybody was just staring towards Lin Feng and Meng Qing. They were very curious as to who these people were. "Noana, who are those two strangers?" asked one of the tribe. "They are my new friends, we met in the desert," explained Noana. She didn't mention what had happened in the desert with the wolves of the desert. She didn't want anyone to panic. "Noana," said a loud and vigorous voice which interrupted the conversation. The crowd slowly opened a path and shouted, the head has come," one after the other. "Father." The crowd opened the way and a tall and strong man appeared in front of Noana. "Noana, didn't you bring any items back?" asked the head of the Blackwood tribe. She just shook her head, she didn't know what to say. Nuana, has something happened? Something that prevented you from returning with a good harvest? Asked Mu at that moment. Nuana shook her head again and said, Nothing, father. What are you talking about? Suddenly said Shan while moving forwards. He looked at Mu and said, Foster father, we encountered the wolves of the desert. The wolves of the desert. When the crowd heard his words, many people started to shake. They all looked terrified. Shan, shut your mouth. Shouted Nuana, but her father glared at her until she lowered her head in silence. He then said to Shan, Son, tell me what happened. Foster father, we ran into these two when crossing the desert, then the wolves of the desert appeared. One of the men with them was the second young master. He clearly said that at midday tomorrow, he will come and propose a marriage alliance. They also said that all of us had to be here. If any of us were missing, they would destroy the tribe. Shan hadn't even finished talking that the crowd around them burst into an uproar. All sorts of shocked comments were spreading throughout the crowd. Mu looked stupefied as well. The second young master of the wolves of the desert. It was said that this perverted young man loved women more than anything else in life. If he saw a beautiful woman, she would be forced into becoming his wife. He already had 7 wives, but it was still not enough for him. He was never satisfied. Nuana, what do you intend to do? Nuana groaned coldly. She remained silent for a few seconds and replied, I want Lin Feng and his wife to leave. Then I will sacrifice myself and marry the second young master from the wolves of the desert. That way, I will be the only one to suffer, nobody else needs to get involved and nothing will happen to the tribe. You're too naive. Said Mu interrupting his daughter. It's impossible to bargain with such people. Besides, how do you know that you're the one he wants? While talking, Mu glanced at Meng Qing. He could see how incredibly beautiful her features were. The second young master was probably extremely interested in her. Nuana, you still haven't introduced your 2 friends to me. Asked Mu in a loud voice while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng glanced at him. Mu really deserved to be the head of the Blackwood tribe. The way he handled things was more well-practiced than Nuana. I met Lin Feng in the desert and we became friends. That beautiful woman is his wife. Said Nuana introducing her friends. Oh. They look like a perfect match. Replied Mu while nodding. He then immediately added, It's getting late, go find a place for our guests. Shan, bring Lin Feng and his wife to one of the guest houses, also don't bother them and let them rest. When Shan heard Mu's order, he nodded and said, All right, I will let them rest. Lin Feng glanced at Nuana and saw that her mouth was slightly open. She was astonished but she didn't say anything. It would have been useless anyway, so she kept her mouth shut. Lin Feng, come with me. Said Shan politely. Immediately after, he brought Meng Qing and Lin Feng to a large house and prepared everything for them to stay the night. Lin Feng didn't say anything and happily accepted. After Shan left, Lin Feng frowned. He walked to the window and opened it. He could clearly sense that some people were observing them. Shan didn't trust Lin Feng. He was afraid that Lin Feng would leave and cause the destruction of the Blackwood tribe. Therefore, he had people watching them, ready to intercept them if they left. But if Lin Feng wanted to leave, would any of this be useful? Chapter 450, The Most Important Person. Edit, Likey Friday Chapter Mu was the head of the Blackwood tribe. He couldn't afford to be as naive as Nuana and tell them to leave. Besides, Mu understood the situation much better than Nuana. The second young master of the wolves of the desert probably wasn't interested in Nuana, but rather Lin Feng's wife. If that was really the case, then since Lin Feng left, the Blackwood tribe would definitely be destroyed. That was the last thing Mu wanted to happen. He couldn't afford to gamble with thousands of lives and let them leave. Even though Lin Feng could understand He Mu's point of view, he still felt angry. Of course, he was Lin Feng and not He Mu. He Mu and Lin Feng were neither friends or enemies, so why would he care about He Mu's point of view? Lin Feng didn't want to allow others to spy on him, nobody would accept such a thing. If he really wanted them to stay, he could have told them clearly, he didn't need to use such despicable means. Besides, Lin Feng had come here by his own free will. I am going out, said Lin Feng to Meng Qing while smiling. Meng Qing slightly nodded. She had of course sensed the people surrounding them, she also didn't feel comfortable with it. Who would allow unknown people to watch them while sleeping or cultivating? Lin Feng left the room and started to walk away. He looked like he was leaving the territory of He Mu's tribe. As expected, Lin Feng hadn't even made it very far when two silhouettes appeared in front to block him, while they remained silent. What do you want? Asked Lin Feng, sounding indifferent, yet cold. Dear guest, please go back, said one of them. He was wearing black clothes and his voice contained a coldness. He was expressionless. I want to go out for a walk, replied Lin Feng while shaking his head. Dear guest, it would be best for you to go back, there are some ferocious beasts out there, it's not safe, said his interlocutor while still blocking his path. I don't need you to worry about my safety, said Lin Feng while smiling and continued walking. The two people were stupefied and immediately moved in front of him again while shouting, since it's that way, don't blame us. Why would I blame you, said Lin Feng sounding indifferent. He then released a terrifying energy which froze the two people in place. They were shocked. Get lost, shouted Lin Feng. His shout caused fear to overcome the hearts of the two people blocking his path. At the same time, a fist landed on each of their chests and their bodies were sent hurtling backwards. They want to rely on you to keep me here, but you only amount to this, said Lin Feng coldly. The two people were crawling across the ground and viciously staring at Lin Feng. They immediately picked themselves up and ran away. Humph. Lin Feng groaned coldly, turned around and went back to his room. He looked at Meng Qing and said, Meng Qing, should we stay here tonight or go out? Let's leave. It will be calmer outside, said Meng Qing while smiling. Lin Feng grabbed Meng Qing's hand and started to move. These days, Meng Qing stopped rejecting his advances. She held on to Lin Feng's hand and they left the tribe together. They rose into the air and streaked across the sky. In the blink of an eye, they were gone. After Lin Feng and Meng Qing left, a group of people with torches and lanterns rushed towards the guest house. When they saw that it was empty, they were astonished. Bastard! Where did they leave from? He Mu was furious. Father, Lin Feng is not a member of our tribe, if he left, just let it be, we shouldn't interfere with others, said Nuana who was by his side. Shut the hell up, said He Mu. What do you know? They left, which means our Blackwood tribe will meet its end. If you want to marry the second young master of the wolves of the desert, that's your problem, but now everybody is involved, your brothers and sisters will all die. Nuana's face turned deathly pale, her lips twitched and she said, Father, it was your fault for sending people to spy on Lin Feng, otherwise he wouldn't have left. If he had wanted to avoid the situation, he wouldn't have come to our tribe in the first place. Smack! He Mu was furious and immediately slapped his daughter's face. He looked ice cold. You slut! Look at what, you're staying in the guest house now, I'll lock the door, and tomorrow when the second master arrives, I will give him the key. You'll be his and I'll even congratulate him at the wedding. He Mu's voice was ice cold. He then ordered a few guards to stay and prevent her from leaving. Nuana's face was deathly pale and the tears started to flow down her cheeks. In tribes like these, men held absolute superiority over women, the Blackwood tribes was no different. For the sake of the tribe, her father would rid himself of all emotion and abandon her, he would sacrifice her for the sake of the whole tribe. Lin Feng had no idea of what was happening after he left. They had already arrived at the top of a small mountain. It was a very dark and cold night in the desert. Meng Qing slightly moved and put her head on Lin Feng's shoulders. She then said, "Lin Feng, don't you have the feeling that there is something strange about this place? As if there is something different." Huh? Lin Feng was stupefied. He then looked at Meng Qing and said, "You also feel it?" Meng Qing smiled and said, "Lin Feng, don't forget that I practice a lower moon skill, the sun is its polar opposite. I can sense both water and fire distinctly." Lin Feng nodded. Water and fire were opposite elements, so Meng Qing being able to sense the overwhelming fire qi wasn't surprising at all. "I can also sense it. It's like there is a fire burning under our feet that could explode at any moment." Lin Feng had practiced the cosmos burning sun skill, he was still unable to advance it to an authentic sun skill, but it was still at the level of a lower sun skill. It was enough to sense that under their feet, a terrifying fire qi was burning. It was a very scary feeling. "I wonder if my mother and father sensed it too when they arrived," whispered Lin Feng while looking into the distance. "Don't think about it too much. Have some rest. Tomorrow, we are going back to the Blackwood tribe," said Meng Qing while leaning against Lin Feng's body and smiling. "Meng Qing, how do you know that we're going back?" "Because I understand your heart. If we leave it like that, it could be a catastrophic disaster for Noa Na. She can stay with us if you like," replied Meng Qing in a soft way. Lin Feng was astonished. "You don't mind me having other women by my side?" "I don't mind, really. Lin Feng, if you meet a girl that you like, she can stay with us, I really don't mind. As long as there is room for me in your heart, I don't mind." Lin Feng was astonished. While talking, Meng Qing looked sad. Did she really think it was okay? "You're lying," said Lin Feng while gazing into the distance. Meng Qing shivered at those words. "Well, even if I don't like it, I would have to accept it. The most important thing to me is that I always have a place in your heart," replied Meng Qing in a soft way. Her voice was sweet and gentle. She loved Lin Feng wholeheartedly, she couldn't change that. She was extremely scared to lose him. It didn't matter that their love was a wonderful and beautiful story, or that she was extremely beautiful, she couldn't help but be scared of losing him. Lin Feng hugged Meng Qing tightly and ran his fingers through her hair. His face was filled with warmth and sweetness. Meng Qing was his first love. She was always by his side, she had always protected him and had never asked for anything in exchange. No matter if she was acting coldly or laughing wholeheartedly, he loved her. For Meng Qing's smile, he was ready to do anything, he would destroy the world for her. How could he ever stop loving her? If there ever was another woman, Meng Qing, nobody would be able to replace you, nobody. You will always be the most important person in my life. Lin Feng was still gazing into the distance, but he had a magnificent smile on his face. However, he couldn't agree to having only one woman by his side, because in the imperial city, there was another woman who wanted nothing more than to be by his side. She was waiting for him. She spent her days drawing portraits of his face, she had dedicated her entire life to him. Sometimes, Lin Feng asked himself why he was going so far for a woman, why he would do anything for a smile. For love, one could accomplish great things. For love, nothing was impossible. When Meng Qing heard Lin Feng, tears started to roll down her cheeks. He was saying that she was the most important person in his heart and that she would always be. That was enough, for her, that was enough. Chapter 451, Kill Me. Like he was here sat chapter at midday, the scorching sun was soaring high in the sky and the golden sand of the desert seemed like it had turned into lava beneath people's feet. At that moment, the scorching sun was shining down on the Blackwood tribe, even though it seemed calm and peaceful, the atmosphere was rather depressing. At the entrance of the Blackwood tribe, a great majority of the tribe members were standing in wait. The head of the tribe was standing at the very front, his daughter Nuana was also by his side, however, Nuana's hair was an absolute mess and she was bound by rope. Her face was one of sadness. However, she wasn't scared at all, she only felt desperate and hopeless. She had been tied up by her own father and he was going to sacrifice her to a monster, the second young master. How could Nuana not feel desperate and hopeless? Everybody was calmly standing there and waiting. Finally, the sounds of hooves filled the air and drew the attention of the Blackwood tribe, they all looked extremely nervous. Very quickly, a cloud of golden sand rose in front of them and a group of armored horses arrived at the entrance of the village. I am the second young master of the wolves of the desert, I've come today to propose a marriage alliance. A loud and clear voice filled the air. Immediately after, many people were applauding and cheering him. With one sentence, he had stated his purpose as marriage, it didn't differ much from a kidnapping though, the second young master only allowed the Blackwood tribe to keep face, nothing more. The different horses opened a path for the young man as he appeared before the eyes of the Blackwood tribe. That young man looked extremely arrogant. When he saw that Nuana had been tied up, he was stupefied and said in an ice-cold tone, "Who is the head of the Blackwood tribe?" Mu took a step forward and looked at the young man while bowing, he then said in an overly polite tone, "Venerable and respectable second young master, I am the humble head of the Blackwood tribe, I heard that you were interested in my daughter Nuana, I, Mu, am willing to give her to you. She is now yours to do with as you please." But the second young master frowned and said coldly, "Who tied her up? I am here to propose a marriage alliance, this is not a kidnapping. Besides, I want your daughter and the other girl who was with her yesterday. I want you to hand them both over to me, they will be my new wives." As expected. Mu wasn't surprised, that second young master had come for Lin Feng's wife, Nuana was just a bonus, nothing more. "Venerable and respectable second young master, please accept my most sincere apologies, I tied Nuana up because she voluntarily released the other girl," said Mu sounding angry at his daughter, but in reality he was terrified of the second young master. The wolves of the desert were the cruelest people in the region. If the second young master didn't forgive them, it would be the end of the Blackwood tribe. When the second young master heard Mu, he was stupefied. Then, an ice-cold light started flashing in his eyes. "Do you know why I came here? Do you know what my purpose was?" asked the second young master in a very aggressive tone which caused Mu to shake. "Yesterday, I didn't immediately attack and kidnap them because I attached too much importance to her feelings, I felt a great deal of esteem and respect for her, that is why I said, and I couldn't have been clearer, that I wanted everybody to be here today, otherwise, why do you think that I came here in person for your daughter?" "That's ridiculous," the second young master's voice was becoming colder and louder as he spoke. He then added, "Now, you allowed her to leave." Mu was shaking, he was terrified. "Venerable second young master, my daughter received a bad education, she let her go. You can take Nuana and deal with her as you wish, you can humiliate her as you see fit." When Nuana heard her father's words, her face turned red. Her father was telling a monster to take her and humiliate her. Could he still be considered her father? "I will," said the second young master in an ice-cold tone before adding, "but first, I will destroy the Blackwood tribe." "Young master!" shouted Mu. He raised his head and said, "Second young master, I am offering you my daughter. And after that, the Blackwood tribe will listen to anything you say, we will work for you." "Huh?" The second young master was stupefied. When he heard that the Blackwood tribe would be willing to work for him, he thought that it might be a better result than annihilating them. What a shameless excuse of a father. At that moment, an ice-cold voice filled the air. Everybody was stupefied. Who's that? He Mu turned around and immediately saw two people in the distance slowly walking towards them. It was precisely Lin Feng and Meng Qing. When He Mu saw them, he was stupefied. The second young master also narrowed his eyes. Immediately after, he smiled. He hadn't thought that Lin Feng and Meng Qing would return. Why did you come back? Shouted Noa Na. Lin Feng had already left. Why did he return? He was delivering himself and his wife to the enemy. I never intended to leave, said Lin Feng while smiling. Lin Feng and Meng Qing quickly arrived in front of everybody else. Then they both glared at the second young master. Interesting, said the second young master while smiling. He immediately added, Hey Mu, you said that you were going to work for us, now go and kill that brat and hand me the girl. Yes, master, replied He Mu and then added, Hey Shan, go and kill him. Yes, foster father. He Shan took a step forwards and looked at Lin Feng with an ice-cold glare while releasing a deadly energy. Initially, he was supposed to marry Noa Na once he became the strongest warrior in the tribe. He felt that stopping to talk with Lin Feng was the cause of everything that was happening. If they had never met Lin Feng in the desert, none of this would have happened, because the wolves of the desert wouldn't be interested in them if not for Meng Qing. Lin Feng looked at He Shan's deadly energy and laughed. He then said, I am warning you, don't attack. I never show mercy to those who want to kill me. Die, bastard! Shouted He Shan ferociously while throwing himself towards Lin Feng. He released a brutal energy which created a hurricane as he attacked. Wow! How strong! Thought the members of the Blackwood tribe while looking at He Shan. They were all cheering for him. He really deserved to be called a warrior of the Blackwood tribe. He Shan was really strong. Very quickly, He Shan arrived in front of Lin Feng. His fist was moving closer and closer to Lin Feng's chest, but Lin Feng remained absolutely motionless. He wasn't reacting at all. Kill him! Shouted someone from the tribe. Lin Feng had to die for them to survive. Noa Na opened her mouth. Her face was deathly pale. Lin Feng had returned, but he was going to die. He Shan was one of the strongest warriors of the Blackwood tribe. How could Lin Feng compete with him? While Noa Na was thinking this, He Shan's fist bombarded Lin Feng's chest, making all the members of the Blackwood tribe laugh out in joy. He Shan was monstrously strong. Lin Feng didn't even put up a fight. Boom! He Shan's fist crashed onto Lin Feng's chest, causing his clothes flutter in the wind. However, the smiles suddenly froze in place. They could all clearly see that Lin Feng was still standing, motionless, and his expression was unchanged. He hadn't moved at all and he was clearly still conscious. Lin Feng wasn't dead, he wasn't even injured. Huh? He Shan was shocked. He punched Lin Feng again, but Lin Feng remained completely motionless, like a huge mountain. He Shan was dumbstruck. He raised his head and looked at Lin Feng, who was now laughing because he found the situation terribly amusing. How's that possible? What's going on? He Shan's fist was shaking. Everybody watching was astonished as well. Lin Feng had just been punched in the chest by He Shan multiple times, but he hadn't even moved an inch. So that's how you were planning to kill me? Laughed Lin Feng coldly. He looked perfectly calm and unaffected by what just happened. Everybody was stunned. They hadn't thought of the possibility that Lin Feng would be a strong cultivator. I warned you before about attacking me, said Lin Feng in a cold tone. He then slowly raised his hand, and then pointed his finger. Lin Feng's finger was pointing directly at He Shan. Suddenly, Lin Feng's finger started to move, which frightened He Shan, who started to quickly retreat. However, as weak as he was, would he have a chance to retreat? Lin Feng's finger immediately landed on He Shan's throat and slit from ear to ear. After grabbing his throat and convulsing, he slowly collapsed onto the ground, dead. Hey Sean is dead. Hey Moo was shocked and his heart was now palpitating even more violently. Hey Moo was blankly staring at Lin Feng's figure. He would never have thought that the delicate and handsome-looking Lin Feng was actually a powerful cultivator. Because of a few words from them, you wanted to kill me. How ridiculous, joked Lin Feng. Hey Moo wanted to kill him because of what the second young master said. Hey Moo was convinced that Lin Feng was a weak young noble and not a powerful cultivator. However, if he had known that the second young master from the wolves of the desert was only an insect in comparison with Lin Feng, he would have acted very differently. He was shocked by the turn of events. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.